All right, welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. Right, welcome. It's Friday, 3 p.m. West Coast America time. Peter from Ireland. Peter Coyle, my buddy. Welcome, brother. Share this out, share this out. Okay, so it's Friday. We're going to be talking about the law of one again. If you have been let's start with if you guys are out there, because I know many people have, almost everyone that I've talked to that's aware of energies have been having issues for the last 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks, almost this entire moon cycle. So just so you guys know, Monday is the new moon. So this moon cycle will be ending and things are getting better. But the energy has been crazy. Psychic mediums have been able to make connection properly. They're having issues. People's energy has been off. People have been doubting what's going on. And you had a lot of negative bombardment of energies. Denise, welcome. A lot of negative bombardment of energies working on the ego, on the fear factor, the doubt factor on everybody for 3 weeks now because of this full moon. Close to it, 28-day cycle ends on Monday with the new moon. Literally, so now then we begin waxing into a new moon. So I felt that it was waning, and I don't think all of it was just the moon cycle, because usually you get reports from a bunch of people telling you, oh, the moon is in this right now, and you have this retrograde, and none of that was happening, and everybody was freaking out. And so I know that there was a lot of opposition going on. So for those of you around the world that are listening to this, just know that today is July 14th, 2023. And literally wherever you are in the world, it's either July 20th or 14th or July 15th, depending on whether or not, where you are on the planet. Those of you in Australia, it's morning on the 15th over there. Those of you in the UK, it's evening, almost nighttime, or it is night, but 8 hours ahead of me. So literally, guys, know that Monday, for those of you who are just on the other side of the prime meridian from my time zone in California, it'll be Tuesday morning for you when the moon cycle reaches the new moon. So just know that, guys, there is relief in sight. Okay, so last week we were talking about people in ascension with Ra in this session. And I'm backing up like a question or two just to cover where we were at, so we can get in that before we, so we can finish this session hopefully today. And move on to the next session. Penny, welcome. Like I said, share this out. I've shared this to just my page alone. We're obviously live around the world on YouTube and on Facebook in 3 places now, because I've shared it to another, but I'm live on Return to the Old Ways group and Orion Rising, the page. So like I said, share this out. Share this or the thing from YouTube to, let's get some people over there. Since I got my other channel deleted, I only have, I don't know, like 50 people or something following me over there. And I used to have thousands on the old channel a year ago when they deplatformed me off of all Google products. Luckily I had another account that I was using that was under my personal name. And now I'm starting to use that, but nobody knows about it. So it's just the people who are looking for it can find it. But all of my stuff was deleted. So you got to love that. Over 400 episodes of my show and other videos that I had done prior to that. Right? Yeah, it's 11 o'clock over there, Peter, in the UK, 11:09. It's 3:09 over here right now, 3:05 here. So we're right there around the same 8 hours. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the law of one, but I wanted to mention that because we are aware that the energy has been really, really intense, even for myself. I don't know anyone who was untouched by the energy that's aware of what was going on. And, I don't know anyone who wasn't, people who weren't aware, they were just having issues with their life and didn't understand what was happening. They just, for them, it's just the algorithm that they're not even noticing. You know what I mean? They just all of a sudden they're fighting and angry, and while it's hot, it's July, and because of the heat, everybody fights. That is just a lot of, very normal degree. Absolutely true. The hotter it is, so those of you who are down in Australia or wherever, you're in wintertime now, but in your summer, in late December and January, it's really hot, and people are just more angry. It's hot. It's uncomfortable. So that happens. That plays a part. And then the moon cycle plays a part. And personal algorithms play a part. These are things that we're trying to teach you guys about learning about, because the truth is, if you're paying attention to all of that, you literally can manage your energy better knowing that. I was just talking to Cassie, who I don't think she's going to be here today because she's on her way over to go and spend some time with her friend. And so she was packing and said she was driving, and she might try to punch in to hear what we're talking about, right? So yeah, Penny says the energy is crazy, and I'm not sleeping even with the AC on. It's just that way. I've been having all kinds of dreams, which I normally have anyway, but these dreams have been completely different. Luckily I have Native American shaman training, especially for dream walking and the like. And I teach that, as a matter of fact. I have for 30 years, since I was taught by Native Americans, who I don't even know if they're still around. I'll be honest with you. I haven't seen them in 30 or 40 years since I saw them. I was thinking about it last night because I was talking to somebody about and teaching the shaman Native American dream walking and interpretation of dreams, and being able to take control of your dreams and see and realize what's happening in them. And I was like, wow, who was it that was teaching me this? And I remember I remember three of the Native Americans who were teaching me, and I was like, wow. And weird thing is, I only remember two of their non-native names. I don't remember Yellow Feather. I don't remember his non or Christian name, his non-native name. I just knew him as Yellow Feather. But Chief White Cloud and his wife, I know both of them. And she was Little Dove, and he was Chief White Cloud. I know their names. They're Christian or mundane names. I could remember them, but I couldn't remember Yellow Feather's name. I just remember him. And working with him and talking to him, and of course Chief White Cloud was him and his wife were a big influence in my life. I spent a lot of time with them. They even took care of me and babysat myself and my brother and my sister. They were good friends with my family, with my father and my mother. So I was lucky enough to have a lot of Native Americans in my life that were capable of aiding in my training. In that respect, I only have 5% Native American DNA, but that's a crazy amount. Just with that, so anybody who has more than that, I'm like, wow, bro, or man or woman, it doesn't matter. And the same with Aborigines anywhere in the world, Australians like Stephen and Evan Strong. Literally, Stephen is half Aboriginal. So that would make Evan at least a quarter, if not more, depending on what his mother's DNA had in there. So they have a lot of native DNA. And you can tell when you talk to them, they're just very spiritual. Native people seem to be a lot more spiritual. That's because of their old ways. They're more in tune and haven't changed their spiritual paths as a nation, as a people. They refused. Some of them did and have integrated with society, but the old culture is still there. They would not allow the society to denigrate that, even though they've literally tried to commit genocide on all indigenous peoples around the world. And they still are doing that. All governments are still doing that. I don't want to get too politically minded, but they are. Look at Australia and what they're doing there. It doesn't matter. Look at the Canadians and look at the American government here. I don't know what it's like in Mexico or Central America or South America, but I think that mostly because the people there are indigenous. They're related. So I don't believe that there's as much of that going on there as there is in places where Europeans have shown up to try and take over the world. So I see that the culture is more embraced, going back thousands of years. I was just looking at maps of Peru and in the 4 or 5 cities. Most people only know the names of a few that are still there from thousands and thousands of years ago. And I bring that up because of the dreams that I had last night. One in particular, I was talking about with Cassie, and she would be able to attest to that if she were here. I was telling her the dream, literally, and there was not. I only told her the the basic ideology, but literally in my dream, there were people in there that seemed to be under the spell of something, and they were literally like taking out knives and chopping their fingers off, like at the top knuckle, and cutting it off, and it just seemed like that was what they were subconsciously doing, not consciously doing it, and they were doing it in a way like, I don't feel the pain to prove to whoever. And I was trying to figure out how to stop them, and who was teaching them this. And I because of it being so surreal, I immediately questioned, this can't be real. This must be a dream. So something's going on here. But I still need to investigate and figure this out. Well, nobody was aware that they were doing anything wrong. So I kept looking and couldn't find anyone. And then they were even trying to help me, even though they were doing things to themselves to harm themselves. They were trying to help me, but they still had no idea what was causing them to do it. In fact, they didn't even realize they were doing it, even when I told them. So I then asked my ancestors and guides. Literally, I was, okay, this must be a dream. I need to find out what it is I'm missing here. So I asked that question, and the answer that I got was that someone needs to show them the right way. And without anyone showing the people the right way, evil is taking control and showing them the wrong way. And I realized that it was a metaphor for obviously what's happening here on the earth, and my mission of what I'm doing here. And literally, because of the energy of what's been going on, I've been questioning that mission as well. So literally, I was kind of going over that, obviously, in my subconscious, because it manifested in a dream where I had to take action. And even trying to take action, I had to seek the proper course of action. I couldn't just stop them. They were still doing that anyway. So I had to figure out who was causing it and try and find that person. And then I had to rely on my ancestors and guides for that information. And they wouldn't give me the information, but they were giving me the tools to figure out that information. And they were telling me it's not as important to find an individual who's causing this. It's more important to fix the problem and get these people to change their ways and help also fix the problem, instead of trying to solve it by cutting off the head, so to speak. So I literally, one guy was just determined that he was going to help me. Meanwhile, he pulls out a knife and starts cutting his left pointer finger off. And he gets down to the bone, and I physically stopped him. And he was unaware that he was doing any damage to himself at all. He was at a blank look. He didn't realize that it was happening, like he was literally hypnotized or under a spell. And I stopped him from doing it, pulled his hand away. And then I put my hand over the finger, and grabbed a hold of it, thinking I have to stop the bleeding. And when I did, I emanated light, and it healed his finger. And he was like, wow. And then I watched his eyes clear up, and he said, well, thank you. What was going on? I don't understand. And I said, don't worry about that. I said, you have to help me to guide everyone else, to get them to learn what you've learned. And he said, I don't know how to do that. And I said, yes, you do. And I put my hand on his chest, right over his heart. And again, my hand illuminated, and it went into his body and illuminated his heart, and his entire, everything, his demeanor changed, his color changed. And he looked at me then, and he smiled, and he said, I understand. And before that, he didn't use that term. He said understand before. And now he says, I understand. And he says, what can I do? And I said, just what I did. Go and show them, and then tell them to show everyone else. And that will eventually fix everyone. And I realized that sometimes even myself, with this energy what was going on in this last week, that I was not appreciative of, or realizing how to utilize the information that I had and even today I was kind of talking smack about them, how they're up there telling us hurry up, and like as if they order us around. And then when we turn on them and go, I'm sorry, you want to come down here? They go, hey, look, we're all one over here. Yeah, but you have this passive aggressive attitude that down on earth, when you act like that, that is the sign that you are in service to self and that you're evil. So you're really triggering me as a human being to look at you in a different light, because you think you have the authority to order me around, but yet you don't have the ability to come down here and do what I'm doing. That's why you're up there, not down here, because you're afraid to be here and to do this. So don't try and tell me how to do my job when I'm down here, because I'm really, really good at what I do. So this isn't my first rodeo. I'm novice. This isn't the first time that I'm here. So why are you questioning what I'm doing? And, of course, then they back off. But the storyline in my dream was to stay focused and utilize the tools that I have at my disposal, and then pass that forward to other people, which is what I have been doing while I was down here. But the difference was that I was questioning that more than normal, even though outwardly I wasn't doing that, but inwardly I was. And some people I told about that, because everybody was having problems. I just didn't admit it to most people for the reason of leadership. You don't want to do that. But I decided that now that it's almost over, I would go ahead and go look. Not anyone that I know was immune to that. And you guys out there on the planet need to know that. That sometimes you guys think that we're impervious, and how is it that they're doing what they're doing and nothing affects them? That is not true. We just don't let you know it. Okay. I went to leadership training literally because my family was military and not a joke, and descendants of kings, not a joke, DNA proven. So I went through management training and leadership training and all kinds of stuff for military training, governmental training, even gentleman training, literally how to be an aristocrat, how to walk, talk, how to eat, how to stand, everything that I've had to use a few times in my life. And people would just look at me like, what language are you speaking all of a sudden? And that's not a joke. I just don't, I don't talk like that when I don't have to, but there are times when I've had to do that. And people have looked at me and went, wow, you're a suck up. You sound just like them. And I'm like, yeah, well, they talk a certain way to fit in with one another. It's the reason they do that. English is the way it is currently. This language that you're speaking is so hard to learn because rich people have a different version of the way they speak. And you see that if you watch like the news and hear them talk. Now they all talk with the same accent that I have here, which is that I come from nowhere accent. That's what we call that, or I come from everywhere accent, because it's not an accent that literally anyone has. It's a broadcast accent. Only most of what they say and how they say it is projecting fear to you. But when they're not trying to project fear, they sound just like me right now when I'm talking. But they're trying to project fear to you. So they have a fear tone that they practice, that they hit. Not a joke. I can sense it. Most people can sense it. So I wanted to move forward because this is what you're getting the ascension with Raw right now. So I'm bringing us back to what Raw was talking about. And someone else had posted, people were questioning reality, and I've seen that a lot on Facebook and Instagram and all over the internet. where people are, questioning things about reality, literally asking questions like, what is reality to you, or what do you think of reality? And other people are saying, and I just answered one of these posts where someone was saying, did demons take over the world and I was unaware of it? Because all of a sudden it seems like all of these people are doing this evil stuff. And my response was, no, that it's not all of a sudden. It's been going on for tens of thousands, almost hundreds of thousands of years. It's just in this lifetime, you've never noticed it until now. And people are waking up. You guys around the world are seeing it for the first, and you're like, when did they do this? I can't believe that they're doing this. When did they start with this? And who are these people? It's not that this is now something that just happened. This is the way it has been forever, and you're just now capable of seeing it. That's what's going on. Somebody literally said, did CERN literally shift us into a different paradigm? And I'm like, no, but you're close. The paradigm is shifted away from the evil control of the world. And because of that, more and more people are waking up exponentially because of the work that billions of us on this earth are actually doing to fix this. And they're not able to hide like they were before, because nothing has changed. You have an MMA fighter over in Romania who is being detained and arrested and was in jail and is now under home arrest for 7 months for the crime of nothing. They're literally saying that he coerced by using, I posted this so you guys can see it. It's in the chats, I think, but it's definitely on my channel. It was Tucker Carlson went to Romania and sat down. I haven't watched the entire thing. I've watched the first hour and a half or hour of it. And I haven't finished it. I'll finish that tonight after the show, his interview. But he actually watched him fight. He's an MMA fighter. And I was like, oh, where did he go? Did he retire? And now I found out what happened to him, and he's in jail. And literally they're claiming that the Romanian government is claiming that his crime is human trafficking. And the charge to justify human trafficking is they're saying that he used his powers as a rich man and his powers of persuasion, and he was nice to women. And somehow, like a vampire, he charmed them and convinced them to become TikTok influencers, and he was stealing their money from them. And when the government interviewed the women who they claimed that he did this to, they said, I'm friends with him, but that's not going on. And the government said, oh no, you're completely brainwashed. You don't even know you're a victim. We see it. So there is no corroborating storyline from anyone who they claim is his victim. But the government says we know better because we can see that this happened, and they are so oblivious to it. They don't even know that it has happened to them, and he is taking advantage of them. Yet there's no money exchange anywhere. And they haven't even proved that these women are actually making money off of TikTok, but there is no trail of money going from TikTok to these women and from those women to him or to any bank that he controls or anything. But they're holding him in prison without any other charges. And he believes that was done on purpose to shut him up, because he's teaching men to stand up and say no. And have the strength to be a man, a real man, and look at governments or people and say, you know what, I don't like what you're doing. And no. So they're literally trumping up charges because he won't shut up. He has a podcast and he won't shut up. So because of that, they put him in jail, and they have charges that are fake. And our government is complacent with it. No one in our government, and he's half English and he's half American, and holds dual citizenship in England, the UK, and America. And neither country is doing anything to help him. They're being belligerent to him and ignoring him. And he believes they're behind it, that this is the people, the 1% that own the planet, or think they do, that are trying to shut him up because he is a dissenting voice and he won't be silenced and he won't work with them. And so because of that, they're literally going to put him in jail, and they're trying to put him in jail for the rest of his life. So literally you have that going on. And people are saying, well, this is new. This has never happened. Okay, I'm Irish. I'm 3/4 Irish, and I'll tell you right now that in the UK, and Peter Coyle, who's in this group, who is also Irish, will attest to this. In the UK, forever, the UK government, the Crown in England, have been arresting Irish people and putting them in jail with no charges and keeping them there until they die. Okay, and that is not a joke. And especially anybody that they have identified back in the last 100 years as an Irish Republican Army member, and many of them in protest went on strike back in the 70s. I believe it was the 70s. Peter, correct me on the dates if I'm wrong here. 70s or 80s, and they literally went on a hunger strike because they were being held without bail, without charges. And nobody would defend them and nobody would do anything. The Crown would not allow them out of jail. So they literally starved themselves to death, refused to eat, and many of them died. There were a lot who died, literally died of starvation while the government had them in prison. Does this sound familiar? So now let's come forward in time to, literally to January 6th from 2020. And there are still hundreds of people in a prison in the United States of America with no charges whatsoever. And no one in this government, these so-called Republicans are supposed to be for the people, and they want you to vote out these Democrats that are in charge, but none of them are doing anything to free those people, or even squawking about why are they being held without charges. The only person who talked about that was Tucker Carlson, and the more he talked about that, the more they went after him to try and get him off the air. And they sued Fox over the stuff that he had said and won the lawsuit, and said part of the lawsuit is you have to fire Tucker Carlson. So they did. This has been confirmed. This is not my conspiracy theory. It was confirmed by personnel on the news and government officials on the news when they talked about it live. I thought that prior to them saying it, and then they confirmed it when they said, no, this was part of the lawsuit and he got fired because of what he was saying. So he was literally blowing the whistle on the government, saying, why are these men or protesters being arrested and put in jail and not being charged or given the right to defend themselves in any way, and just sitting there when that's against the Constitution of the United States? He wouldn't shut up, so they fired him. And then when he started talking about it again on Twitter, they filed a lawsuit and an injunction to try and get him to stop talking on Twitter, because they said that was against his contract that he had, that they fired him. And so they're trying to still hold him to a contract that he can't talk to anybody else because they're trying to shut him up. And of course, did he do that? No, he's still on the air. You should go to Twitter and watch him, because he's blowing the whistle and always has been. And most people are like, I don't like Tucker Carlson. You don't if you're a Republican, and you don't if you're a Democrat. It's the same thing when I start talking. That's why I don't go down that road of reporting on that religion as often. I could do an entire show just doing that. I used to. During COVID, I did that and got deleted and put in jail many, many times. Peter GV, who's finally back on Facebook, if you're in any of the chats or the groups that Peter's in, you know that he's been gone for almost a month. Why? He did the same thing. He made a comment that was not conducive with what they're teaching and what they're saying. And because he said that, they literally penalized him by putting him in Facebook jail for, I guess, a month now. And he literally is just got back on air on Facebook and Messenger 2 days ago. He was on Instagram, which the same company Meta owns, but they run it obviously different because they didn't delete him off of that. Unlike Google, when Google deletes you, they delete you off of even using their search engine. Trust me, I know. I did that a year ago last March. I literally could not even, on any device I owned, I could not use Google to do a search. I had to actually go to Google, my Google Mail, Gmail, log out of that account, which was not terminated, but it was illegal to use on this earth, and log into a different Gmail account, and then I could access everything still. And that was my warning from Google that if you don't comply, we'll delete you and keep you off of the air on all of our products. Like that really was something that I was concerned with, because there are still other search engines out there that they're not in control of, that I use anyways. Okay. And you guys know that, like DuckDuckGo or DuckDuckGo, is that what it's called? I can't remember. That's a game. I know that, but I think that's what it's called. And they don't control that one. So you can still use that. So I wasn't really concerned, but then I wanted to check on what happened to my YouTube account and found out they had deleted it. Just like that, gone, deleted, completely deplatformed. And then I checked to see if I still had my other YouTube accounts, because I have two now. I had three, I have two now, and they're still there and active. So I started broadcasting on the one that I'm broadcasting on now, starting all over with trying to build people up there. And, you know, I would go live on Rumble, but the problem with that is that thing, that's just as bad now as YouTube. When I tried to upload a video, my show, to Rumble, it took over an hour for me to upload that video to Rumble. That is insane. It's literally whatever my show is, it's like a half of whatever it is. So if I have a 3-hour show, it's an hour and a half to upload it. So it uploads literally in 1.5 time. Right? So it's literally in time and a half instead of real time. That's insane. That's stupid, right? So, but I may end up going on to Rumble or one of those other platforms and just do that, or I might just start, and this is what I've been thinking about, just starting to go back to, Spreaker and that, and go live on, on my MP3 broadcast, and then just share that to these places. You guys don't watch anything other than if you're watching the video, you just see the Law of One poster anyways. And Dino Hewitt from Paranormal Into the Night and the Late Horror Show. You guys should watch that. It's really fun, by the way. He has told me forever, he's doing video now, but he used to do only audio forever. And he does that when he does his show. He still just does radio. And he's like, you need to do radio. That's not controlled by them. And you have a bigger reach on the world. And that's literally where my audience is over there, not here, but I still broadcast here because there's different demographics of audience. The older people, it used to be that YouTube that Facebook was everybody. And now all the kids are like, only old people are on Facebook. The truth is, and my demographic on Facebook is literally 33 to 67. Everybody below that is on TikTok and a few other places. And that's not a joke. That's just the way it is. So lines are drawn. And now with Twitter and this other Meta group, I forgot what they're calling it, which is Twitter for all the progressives. They're hoping to wreck Twitter by doing so. And now there's a battle going on, and Musk is suing them, and they'll probably get some judge that's on their team, and they'll pay him money because, let's be serious, Mark Zuckerberg has trillions of dollars, and he'll pay off the judges, and it'll go to the Supreme Court, and then there'll be a big thing, and they'll change a few things and change the name, and it's just like they did with Windows and the Macintosh, because they stole the product from Apple and called it Windows and got it out beforehand, and then they were able to get away with it because there were subtle differences. That's exactly what's going to happen. Again, mark my words on that. That's just like the whole investigation in the United States for the cocaine that showed up in the White House, which they obviously know only a child would think, really? So the most secure building on the face of the earth, they have no idea there was no fingerprints or DNA on this cocaine. So the person who had it on them made sure to wipe the outside and inside of whatever it was in, baggie, Ziploc baggie, briefcase, whatever it was in. So there was nothing, no part of them at all before they set it down. That only a child will believe that. I had to be 5 years old to believe that. And the Secret Service, who literally during 9/11 was able to find a guy who placed a pipe bomb sitting next to a park bench, but never, you know what I mean? They were able to figure that out, but of course they never identified him. You know why? Because he was actually working for them. Whoops, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? because it's just like the guy who was in the crowd telling the crowd to go in and attack and all of that. And it's on video, and people were talking to him and showing his face and saying, "You're a plant by the CIA or the FBI." And when the government investigated him, they were like, "No, there's nothing to see there." Blatantly telling the world, we need to go in there, break down the doors and go in there. He literally said those words. And the government was like, "Hey, no, he's cool. There's nothing to see there." But the guys who were taking selfies are being held in prison right now with no bail and no charges against them until they confess to doing it. But that guy who was actually telling them to do it is okay. And I have to be 5 years old to believe that was just some dude that had nothing to do with antagonizing people to get them to go into the, because he afterwards said, "I never said that." Really? That's weird, because there are 18 separate videos from 18 separate people that have you saying those things at different times of the day in different places, trying to get people to go into the Capitol and break the doors down. I don't know what you're talking about. And the government's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. It never happened." So my point here is to the world that there's a reason why Raw is coming through. I know you guys are like, "Oh my God, it's 30 minutes in. And what the hell is he talking about? He's talking about politics again. He just doesn't even know what the hell. This is supposed to be about spiritual stuff." You do realize that the law of one is Raw coming here and saying, there's this evil force of people, and that their modus operandi is to come down to the earth, take control of it, and put evil people in charge. And they did that a long time ago, Anunnaki. And they did that a long time ago and took over the world, War of the Gods, different places in the Vedics of India, and the German telling of the story, and the Romans telling of the story, and the Atlanteans telling of the story, and the Egyptians telling of the story of the exact same thing happening. And guess what? They came down here, and what did they bring with them? Politics, the religion of evil. The governmental systems that are in charge on the planet now, the monetary system, the caste system, that is everything that Raw is telling you that the Orion Crusaders, although Raw usually calls them the Orion Confederation, I think is what he calls them, not the Orion Coalition, because there is also a coalition of light that has come here, a council of light that is here from Orion. And we followed those yahoos after we kicked them out of Orion and came here to help and kicked them out of here. And now we're repairing the damage that is being done. That was what my dream was about them showing me, stay on point, mission, stay on point. It's working. And literally I was on, and I think Penny was there. Denise was there. Denise was there, I'm pretty sure. I think she did a reading just on her before me. And literally, I literally made sure to ask about mission point timelines to her. And that was just the other day, yesterday or the day before. I don't remember exactly now, because my timelines get really weirded out, especially once I go to sleep. And she even said that there, because I don't sleep. Most of you guys don't know if you're doing anything when you sleep. I am out of body doing things all night long and talking to people, and I'm not kidding you. And she even said that. She's like, "My God, you're out of your body at night and you're running around doing things." And I'm like, yeah, Denise, that was yesterday, right? Thank you. My timeline gets a little messed up. Sometimes I don't know. As I was saying that, I was like, wait a minute, was this tomorrow? Or was this yesterday or 2 days ago? And I'm like, oh, I don't remember now. And so that happens when you get to a certain place, everything starts to mold into, because you get closer to the reality of now, and being able to perceive the past and the future in the present all as one. And so because of that, you get confused sometimes about your timeline. And I just did that. And I was like, wait, is this, am I talking about a reading that Jamie's going to do tomorrow? Or was that yesterday? Thank you for giving me that. It was yesterday. So literally, if you guys saw that, you know what I'm talking about. Denise was there, so she knows what I'm talking about. And I specifically, I normally, if you watch, I normally don't ask any questions of a psychic ever. I let them just tell me whatever that there happens to be in the universe for me to know about. And so I make it a little harder on some of the psychics by not. Hold on, I'm going to turn this on here. Sorry. So I literally make it a little hard on them by not asking any questions on purpose, so that I get a different reading, so that they don't have anything to read into, is my point. Right. So literally, that's why I do that. Well, this time I pointed the questions. I pointed a question on purpose to her, because of what was going on, in the world for me. And she literally was basically saying the same thing in my dream said. So, some people could say, well, she infected or affected my dream. Right. And right. So, Denise is saying, no, you never do with Jamie. My readings, I know, right? Your readings blow my mind. She says, yeah, it does with her too. And there's a reason why that there are like 3 of us that she reads, 4 of us that she reads, that really give her a wow factor. And there's a reason for that, because it's actually helping her to expand her consciousness, because she has she's not completely unveiled. And so there's part of her memory that she doesn't have yet, which she will have. She's far stronger than she even knows. But it's up to her to choose to either wake up further or just stay where she is. And we're aware of that. So we're always going in and having her doing these reads. And she's like, oh man, because of how crazy this stuff sounds to people. If you guys have seen her read me or Cassie or there's a couple of people, I won't go past that, but it's definitely Cassie and myself, and a couple others. Denise, you're in there all the time. Penny's in there too, so you guys see the readings. That she doesn't know this stuff about us, and we do this on purpose to have her read us. And I know that when I show up, she's like, "Oh man, here goes Leo again," right? I know that she does that, but it's done on purpose. She's going to wake up, and she's going to if she chooses to. Because she's really very powerful, like an oracle, powerful. And I think she's starting to realize that, you know what I mean? And I like her humility, where literally yesterday, I think she was reading you, Denise, when she was saying, am I making this up? Tell me I'm not making this up. Please make it stronger. And I could see there that she was having problems communicating. And that was due to this energy that's been going on in this month, that people that are mediums are having issues communicating with the other side. And I was making sure to visit different mediums without their knowledge, or without telling them about it, especially to witness this of what was going on. And it is the time of year here in the United States, but moreover, there's negative energy that works at the time of year that this is worldwide. So they literally use the energy in whatever the summertime is for whatever country that you're in. And in midsummer, when it's really hot, and so you guys are already having issues during a full moon cycle, usually in like here, it's in July. So whatever that July weather for you in your country is identical to this July weather for the North American continent of the world. That hottest part of the year, wherever you are, Australia, UK, Africa, whatever is that same time period in whatever month that is for you. You know what that month cycle is. If you live there and you've been there for more than 2 years, you've gotten used to the cycle. So whenever it is midsummer, for you, whatever that month is, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, because somewhere on the earth, wherever you are, you're one of those months, right? Every month of the year, somewhere in there is your summer. And you'll notice that during that hottest part of the year, you're going to also find that right there in the mid-summer portion of your summer, at around the solstice and a full moon, the closest to both, you're going to see that there's a far more negative energy that's attacking everyone in that region. And that goes on here on the earth. And I don't normally tell people about it because they get scared, and that will manifest it even more. But now that it's almost over, I'm explaining it, and no one's going to remember it next year when it comes up, because most people have a short-term memory. So next year around July 10th, 4th, going into the 4th through the 17th to the 20th, in that time period, next year, no one's going to remember it unless I bring it up again. Right? It's another reason why I posted the new reel showing the Earth chakra points. done by 3 different people. 2 of the things were done by the same guy, and he's got credit. His name is on there. I can't think of his name right now, but showing, and then the tone, if you watch my reel or short or whatever it is, depending on what platform you watch it, and it's about the earth chakras, and it shows you where the earth chakras and the other gateways around the world, that shows you the locations of them currently on the earth, where they currently are. I'm 240 miles 140 miles south of Mount Shasta, which is the base red ray root chakra of the planet. I'm literally just 2 hours or an hour and a half, 1 hour and 29 minutes by freeway away from that chakra. So the actual zone of the chakra, I'm actually in the zone of the Earth's red ray root chakra. And those of you who live in Australia, you know about, and I know that Stephen and Evan do, because they go and do rituals and things at Uluru. Uluru is another chakra. That's the sacral chakra, the solar plexus of the earth. And literally the heart chakra and third eye chakra. The third eye chakra wanders around the planet. The heart chakra is in England at Stonehenge, in that region of England, and the third eye is just west of that. So literally 2 chakras are currently residing in and around, and that's why Stonehenge was built where it was, because the heart chakra was there in that exact spot and has shifted slightly because of the way the earth has been redrawn by the negative energy, but we're fixing that. And that first time anyone said that out loud was Jamie yesterday in that reading. For those of you who were there, I've never said this out loud before. And she said, you're actually a timeline, and you're changing the earth's grid, and you're doing that. And I was like, wow, I've never said that to anyone, and I've never said it anywhere in any post. So she couldn't have read that or heard that from someone in passing, because I've never said that out loud. And yes, that's what's going on. We're literally fixing. That's why the earth is tilting slowly back to the position that it was in 12,000 years ago. And literally we're still off 32.5 degrees off of plumb, but we used to be further off than that. Or now it's 23. I'm sorry. That's why that 23 number keeps coming up to you guys a lot. 23.5 degrees, the planet is off. And so 23 is a number that keeps reoccurring to people over and over and over. 23, 23, 23. Why 23? Because the earth is wounded and is off kilter 23.5 degrees. And we're getting back to 23. We're actually no longer at 23.5. We're at like 23.25. or 23.23. And because of that number is reoccurring. And I've never mentioned this. And even when people have talked to me, I've said, you need to look up the number 23 and see why that number is a factor, because guys like, what's his name? The basketball player. I can't think of his name right now. He now is a co-owner of a NASCAR team with Denny Hamlin, who was 11, and his number was 23, and they call it 2311. They call that their company is called 2311 from their 2 numbers, and both of those numbers are, in fact, 22 is an ascended master number, and 11 is an ascended master number, and the 23 is the current energy of the earth. And the reason I say that is because if you watch my reel, the sound you're hearing is actually what is it? It's I forget the exact number, Peter. What's the resonance of the earth? 7.34, 7.48 megahertz. Or hertz, not megahertz. And literally, so if you watch my reel or short or whatever, if you're on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, you'll see that reel, and it shows you all of those. The sound you're hearing is the actual resonance frequency of the earth. It's what it sounds like. It's what the earth actually gives off as a sound. It's alive, and it's resonating at that particular sound frequency. So I'm showing you the earth chakras, and where they're currently are, and also where these other alignments of gateways are, gateway chakras that are on the planet, and I'm giving you the sound of the planet. There's a reason that I'm doing all of that, and that's why the planet is tilted off of its axis and it was a lot further, and it's righting itself slowly. And as it rights itself, the moon is moving away from our gravitational pull at exactly the same rate of speed and exactly the same distance as we right ourselves. The moon is actually pulling away further and further away from us, because the moon is actually keeping the Earth's cycles of the ocean and tides and seasons happening. The moon is actually doing that. And as it pulls further away from us, it would be less and less, and we would be having problems. But because our planet is righting itself and coming back up to the 0 point, once it gets to that 0 point, we won't have to have all the seasons that we have. We won't have to have, because the planet will make the proper seasons the way they were 75,000 years ago. And the same with the tides will be back to the way they were supposed to be. So our storms and everything that we're feeling now will settle down quite a bit. The earthquakes will slow down. The planet will feel better, and we're healing the planet. But as we're doing that, we have to shift the ley lines back to the way they were 75,000 years ago. Yes, Denise says, she asked the question, she said, Leo, why is the earth tilted? Evil? Question mark? Yes, that's exactly why. It actually was tilted when the Atlanteans were here, and their descendants are still here. Some of the spirits that were here as Atlanteans are still here as humans now. They're the rich and the elite that try to make sure they come back into the same family always as they reincarnate. They literally screwed up the planet because they were screwing with 3, 6, and 9, and they literally stopped the rotation of the Earth. The core of the Earth stopped moving, and the planet flipped over on its axis, flipped over. South became north, north became south, and then it flipped back up. And this happened in a 24-hour time period, by the way. Wreaked complete havoc on the planet, caused the ice age to melt, caused the sea level to rise more than 500 feet. This was the deluge. This was when Atlantis sank into the ocean, because the ocean actually engulfed Atlantis, cooled down the planet by 7 degrees, 8 degrees, because all the water from the north flowed into the oceans to fill the oceans. It also bursted the ionosphere, and we had about 1 billion decaliters of water in the ionosphere. That's the buffer between space and Earth. That's why Copernicus and all those guys could look at the moon and see the craters and look at the stars and use a crude telescope and see things better than we can see now with the Hubble telescope. It was because literally the dome of the sky, which is not flat, because a flat dome doesn't act this way, but a curved dome with water in it acted like a lens on the planet. People are unaware. The scientists know what I'm saying to be true. They know this, and they know it happened, but they don't know what caused it. But literally the catastrophic event, and some people blame it on a satellite planet that flew into our solar system. That did happen 75,000 years ago, but 12,000 years ago it happened again. 75,000 years ago there was a meteor that was a planet that came. We ended up moving into an area, and the planet got into our orbit around the sun and was going crazy. And you can read about it. The Romans wrote about it. This planet went crazy, and it changed everything. And then it got locked into an orbit, and then the things had to go back to normal. Well, that was 74,000. They're correcting me in my head. 74,732 years ago, they're telling me. 6 months, 3 days, 18 hours, and 47 seconds. I'm not making that up. That all just came into my head. So evil people, Denise, to get back on point. Rick, welcome. Atlanteans, there was a war of the gods that the Indians, Indians from India tell about in their stories. Literally, Japanese tell about it. Literally, the Egyptians tell about it. Literally, the Celts tell about it. The Germans tell about this war of the gods that happened, and that was a civil war that went on between the Atlanteans. Those were the people who came here from Maldek after they destroyed the 2.5 planets. In a war with another solar system. And they came here and became the Atlanteans and took over. And then they were screwing around with 3, 6, and 9, and they accidentally stopped the Earth from turning. The core stopped, and what happens is the mantle will continue to slosh, which will happen with liquid. And so what happened was that caused the Earth to flip over on its axis and flip back up. And when that happened, all of the crust floating on top of the mantle shifted and continued shifting until they got it to turn back on. And wherever it is that inertia took all of the land masses is where they ended up. And that is where the chakra points of the planet became. And it wasn't really, really far off because it righted itself, but it is off. So literally right now, Glastonbury is where the heart chakra is, and it's supposed to be in exactly where Stonehenge was, at the center of the heart chakra. And so it's off by a few hundred miles. So the same thing for here in the United States. It's now Mount Shasta, which is a volcano, but it's slightly off from 0 point. And all of the chakras are slightly off, but they're very, very close. But they're wounded. The entire planet's energy was wounded by this, and the chakras are still spinning close to the same area, but the ley lines are shifted away from the chakras, and we're reattaching and moving the energy of the ley lines back to the chakras. And this is what these people around the world who are doing all of these ceremonies at all of these chakra points that you guys don't know about, that didn't know they were chakra points that we've known about forever, do these things on the solstices, on full moons, on new moons. You have a whole group of people, druids from old, who are now in the modern era in a different body, and they don't know why they're doing it, but they know they have to go there and do it. Some of them know that it's the chakra point of the planet. Some of them don't, and they just have this lore that they have to do things there. And they know that it's a sacred place, but then some of them, people don't know that it's a chakra point. So if you ask the Aborigines, they remember that it's actually a chakra point. And that's why the Druids were working at Stonehenge. They knew, and they still go there and do things now. So some people who are the souls who were still here now, that were here thousands of years ago, are still going to these places and doing ceremonies because somewhere in their subconscious or superconscious, they were part of and they're here as wanderers to shift the energy and pull it back to those points. And that's what we've been doing for thousands of years. And we're continuing to do that. And I've never really announced that to the world, but since Jamie Watson Wolf told everybody when she did my reading yesterday. So the evil people were stranded here, to finish that tale for you, Denise. The evil people were stuck here, and the good people left during the war. And the evil people, of course, said, "We drove them out and won the war, and so we're in charge." That's not what happened. They left and thought they had killed most of the people that were here, but stranded them. So it took away their technology so that they couldn't leave the planet. They imprisoned them. So they adopted that story and said, we're a penal colony and that we're all in prison. And that's because this is their prison. And they haven't been able to get off world. And it took them almost 12,000 years to get the technology back to get off world, because they lost the technology and the knowledge of it, only the memory of it. So they didn't know how to reproduce it, and they couldn't reproduce it. So it's literally taking them almost 12,000 years to get themselves to a place where they can get off world again. And so this was their prison. So part of that is true. And that's the part that I try to tell people when they go, we're a penal colony. No, we're not, but those people are. So the rich and the elites that are here that claim they own the planet, they're descendants, and some of them are reincarnated spirits because they're evil. They won't ascend. So they are literally the Atlanteans. And they're just in a different body now, but in the same families. They keep coming back because they all are stuck. 666, the number of the beast, is their broken record, and they exist only here, and they refuse to believe in something of a higher source. So they screwed the planet up and made it crooked. And that's why that term that we use, that person's crooked as hell. Well, crooked literally means not upright, not 0 point, not in service to others, and in a perfect setting in your body. That's why Jesus and all the other people that came here before and after him that were talking about aligning your chakras and be upright. That's literally when you get knighted, because I have been knighted by the Holy Roman Catholic See. Literally, the creed that they tell you, your oath, is be upright, and that means to literally balance yourself and be perfect as you can as a soul in service to others. And they literally say, be upright and defend the defenseless. Speak the truth, even if it leads to your death. It is a way of life, not just a name that you get, not just a title. So literally, so that's why I tell people watch Kingdom of Heaven, because in that movie, when Balian knights everybody to go into battle, that's literally almost 100% word for word. They did their homework. They must have gotten a hold of somebody who was a Knight of Columbus or a Freemason at a very high degree, 33rd degree Master Mason, to know those words, because those have been kept secret. And when I heard them in the movie the first time, I went, what? That's almost literally 100% the words. And it could be a version of them, because they did change them slightly, because they changed the ceremony slightly. So that might be even older one, but the whole hand slap in the face thing is still a thing. It happens to you when you get knighted. Literally, you get, they don't backhand you as hard as they did to the kid, but that's the way they used to do it. They tell you that forever it was that way. You got backhanded across your face, right in the snout, and ended up with a bloody mouth or a bloody nose. And they would say, and that's so that you'll remember your oath, because that action hurts. And it can make you knock out a tooth or break your nose, and you'll remember your oath. You'll take it seriously, is what it's about. So they actually don't do that and smack you that hard anymore, but they do, something similar to that. And then they explain to you that they used to smack you in the face, backhand you in the face and make it hurt. And then when I saw that in that movie, I was like, wow, okay, that's somebody that they really seriously figured that out. So the reason for that is there's the upright, not to be crooked, not to be off kilter, 23.5, and now it's 23.23 degrees. So to not be crooked, to not be evil. So yes, to answer the question, Denise, it was evil people that screwed the planet up. And now we're fixing the planet is righting itself as our energy of the entire species uplifts. We're helping the planet, whether you know it or not. And those of us who are aware of it and have been aware of it for thousands of years, you can look back in history and see for a fact, just like people who are singers who sing about your freedom and sing about you being stuck and how to get unstuck, sing about spirituality, not just religious singings, but them too. And you have these people that people think are evil, like Rob Halford, who is in a band called Judas Priest, and everybody thought they were satanic. But if you listen to their lyrics, it's completely opposite, right? They're completely singing about spirituality in a positive light, not in a negative. These people are bards, and they are aware of it. They have the ability to make songs that have energy, power, and are shaping your vibration in a positive light, and they do it on purpose. There's a band I played a lot in some of the groups, literally called Blind Guardian. That is a druid term, and that is literally a bard term. And the band has their most famous song is the Bard Song in the Forest, because there's a different version. And literally they also have a song called Valhalla, which is a speed metal, death metal song singing about ascending to heaven for Vikings. And they're known to be a death metal band, just like the Amon Amarth, who only sings about Vikings. Most of their songs are about spirituality in the Bohemian way, what we over here call the Bohemian way, which they've kind of adopted that. It used to be called something different, the way of Odin and Thor, and the way of the Viking, but not just the hacking, raping, and pillaging way. And the same thing goes when you look at these people all over the world that are doing these things. Those of us who are druids, we know when we hear a bard singing, we hear bard songs. We can tell the magic that is in there. So whether they're aware of it or not, most of the time they are. They may not be aware that they were, and they've always been a druid. They may not be aware, but they have the knowledge that they have this ability, and that they have this drive to have to write these songs. And that's why Rob Halford, even when he left the band, in which he's back with Judas Priest now, but even when he left the band on his own, He only rarely sang songs that were not about spirituality, and all of his albums were about spirituality. And you go to these bands like Led Zeppelin, and I've talked about the guys from many different bands, Except, which is a rock band from the 70s and 80s, or 80s and 90s. The Eagles. With their songs, Hotel California, it's about being stuck, and Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. So these bands around the world, in Green Day today, that got themselves into trouble because of singing about spirituality, and where people were trying to cancel them for a while. And the guys that were in the Irish rap band who sang that song, I can't think of the name of the band now. They sang that song, Jump Around, Top of the Morning to You. And they split up, but the guys started their own bands, and they talked about spirituality. And some of them were not rap. They went away from that hard rap and got into pop and soul. And some of these guys, you would be surprised. And the same thing happened with the Eagles. They all split up, and Don Henley and all those guys started their own bands. And now they're doing their last tour. But they all were singing about the same things. They're bards from old. I know their souls. And I recognize in a bard, especially Druids and Wiccans, to recognize and are drawn to these bands. And some people don't know why. It's because they're bards. They're singing music that are Tool. Let's be serious. Those guys do math in their every part of the writing of the songs. And Maynard is literally singing about spirituality and this reality. They're bards, and they literally know that they have a mission to do this. And every time they come here, they're another band. Throughout time, they've been singers and musicians for thousands of years. It's what they came here to do. So you guys don't realize that people play parts, and they bring tools, and they reincarnate and do the same things over. So some of these people that now, like Johann Sebastian Bach, his great grandson Sebastian Bach was in the band called Skid Row. And he's also a bard, and realizes that his grandfather, great grandfather, was a bard as well. And what he doesn't know is that he's the same soul. He really is. Johann Sebastian Bach. He's Sebastian Bach now, and he was Johann Bach 3 generations ago. So that's the kind of stuff that some of us know when we see them, but we can't tell them that because they're driven to do what they're doing, and they're not awake enough. And we can't just say things. I can say it out loud, and if Sebastian Bach hears this, he may not believe me unless he's awake enough, and then he'll laugh and go, "I didn't think anybody knew that about me." Okay, so now that I've gone over an hour before playing any of Raw, but this was important because we're literally talking about the ascension and people not ascending. In this thing, right? Yeah, House of Pain. Thank you, Peter. I couldn't think of the name. Peter Coyle in Ireland said "Jump Around" was sung by the band House of Pain. Yes, and I should know that they're American from Philadelphia, from Skid Row, from Hell's Kitchen, over here in the United States. Irish kids from Hell's Kitchen in the United States, and yeah, I love that band. They were a great band. Their songs were raw, in your face. There's a bunch of bands, a few that came out of Ireland that are doing the same. Very famous people and bands from Ireland who sing that style of rock that those of us who are into that European style love, that especially that Irish style that those bands over there sing, that have come out of there. Legendary in Europe and America, still legendary here, but not as big as they are in the rest of the world. And that style, they're bards, and we know it. They know it. And they sing every kind of rock, rockabilly, blues, rock and roll, even like the band The Cranberries. They were singing against all this violence and control by, they had that song Zombie that what's her name sang. Literally, that song was about the control and the manifestation of our thoughts that are forcing the people in the IRA to continue to fight. And everybody thought that they were against the IRA and that they were for the English control, but they weren't. They were literally saying that they're trapped because of the reality that we are co-creating in this reality that is forcing the IRA to have to fight. Not that, and they were saying they're zombies, but they weren't saying that they were saying they don't have any choice. They have to do what they're doing, but they weren't singing from the standpoint of, most people thought they were, Northern Ireland because they were from there, but they all thought they were, against the IRA and freedom for Ireland, but they weren't. And the real Irish knew that. That they were saying, we don't have a choice because of what you're creating in this earth. They have to fight. But they came at it from a standpoint of getting around the censors to where the people that were in charge would go, oh yeah, let them play that song because they were trying to tell the Irish to sit down and not be what they're being. That's not what that song was about. And if you ever talk to the people who wrote it and sang it, well, you can't talk to her anymore because she's passed, but the rest of the band, you'll see that they literally were not. It was the opposite. Listen to the rest of their music. Okay, let's get into having Raw play some stuff out here, and you'll see how it ties in because we're talking about the ascension. Give me a sound check. Let me know if it's loud enough, and then we'll continue this session, okay? So here we go.
20.29 Questioner, am I to understand, then, there was neither a harvestable entities of positive or negative polarity at the end of that 25,000 years? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. Those whom you call the Orion group made one attempt to offer information to those of third density during that cycle. However, the information did not fall upon the ears of any who were concerned to follow this path to polarity. 20.30 Questioner, what technique did the Orion group use to give this information? Ra, I am Ra. The technique used was of two kinds. 1. The thought transfer, or what you may call telepathy. 2. The arrangement of certain stones in order to suggest strong influences of power, this being those of statues and of rock formations in your Pacific areas, as you now call them, and to an extent in your Central American regions, as you now understand them.
Right, now you see why I was talking about Peru and Stonehenge, right? So I wasn't rambling on. I just want to point that out. The reason I brought that up is because all of these places, Sacsayhuaman, Machu Picchu, all these different places around the world where you have these big stone, Cusco in Peru, where you have different places where all these things we found since then. Central America, where all the Aztecs were, and Quetzalcoatl, and all of that. Those were all done to show people, and so that is the pyramids in Egypt as well. In the pyramids all around the world, all these structures that we're finding that date back to more than 12,000 years ago, and some of them even further back than that in these different places, were erected there because they would stand the test of time, and it would get people's attention, and people would look into that. And eventually, when we had the technology like now, go and check the vibrations and mathematical equations and resonances of these places, which is what science has been doing for the last, forever. They were checking out everything they could, but all of the vibrations and all of that, literally in the last 30 years, 40 years now, this has been the case. So all of these were put into these places around the world on purpose for us to find now, knowing that it would transcend past the time when people were going to, because they knew about it. We know about that with the Aztecs and the Mayans with their calendar, knew there was going to be a calamity and that we were going to lose the memory of the past and have to reestablish and find it in the future. So just like passages in the Bibles that were written down and then locked up and sealed for people in the future, these places were also buried right over there in Peru. We know about that. Buried into the ground, or left, and the earth grew back over it. But that we found them. People went and found them and started digging them back up and exposing them and then investigating them. This was done on purpose. And that's literally why I brought up everything that I brought up, because that's everywhere in the world. Uluru, all these places, Shasta, all these places, people are drawn to all of the places where the chakra points are. And there's structures that we're finding at those exact places that were placed there thousands, tens of thousands of years ago, and sometimes further back than that. And we're trying to discover why they're there. And then, of course, what are we doing? We're investigating that. We're getting onto it. And now, come forward into the future, we know their chakra points. We know the ley lines. We know that they've shifted. We know the knowledge of all the things we didn't know 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago. We had no clue on this planet of any of that. And now we know the answers somewhat, not all of them, but we're getting there. Why? Because this was all done on purpose. Okay, so let's continue.
20.31 Questioner, are you speaking in part of the Stoneheads of Easter Island? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 20.32 Questioner, how would such stoneheads influence a people to take the path of service to self?
And those stoneheads are all facing east. And if you literally draw a line from the Rapa Nui facing east, and you go along that meridian line, it crosses through Egypt and goes to Mecca. And it faces east, due east, where the sun comes up in the morning. So they literally were showing us places literally on the planet that they were drawing lines and showing us this information that if we paid attention, it was esoteric. If we paid attention and opened our eyes, like the Rapa Nui had their eyes wide open, big eyes looking in that direction. What is east of here? And then people have made this connection and drawn a line east. And there's other things that face north, and they're right along meridians, they're right along ley lines, they're right along chakra points. And they point you to these places, and some point up off of the earth and point you to other places in the universe, like the pyramids at Giza, which is also a chakra point. It's the navel chakra, and that points up to the stars. And guess what? That points to Orion, which is exactly the belt of Orion, is exactly the same shape as those pyramids on Giza, in the same positioning, and that was in the sky exactly 12,000 years ago, directly above in the night sky when those were put into place. So all of that is telling you something. It's pointing to knowledge for you to unlock and to see.
Ra, I am Ra. Picture, if you will, the entities living in such a way that their mind/body/spirit complexes are at what seems to be the mercy of forces which they cannot control. Given a charged entity such as a statue or a rock formation charged with nothing but power, it is possible for the free will of those viewing this particular structure or formation to ascribe to this power over those things which cannot be controlled. This, then, has the potential for the further distortion to power over other selves. 20.33 Questioner, how were these stoneheads constructed? Ra, I am Ra. These were constructed by thought after a scanning of the deep mind, the trunk of mind tree, looking at the images most likely to cause the experience of awe in the viewer.
Okay, I wanted to stop there because this is very important. So the trunk of mind tree, did you hear that? I wanted to point that out. The trunk of mind tree. The reason I wanted to point that out is I've been waiting now for almost a week. Literally, I've been waiting 6 days to talk about this because I realized it even more so than I had before in a clarity way on something really simple from the movie Thor. And I think I talked about it slightly last week, but we didn't get to this point in the show or of the session for me to get into it. But the mind trunk, right? The tree of life in the mind of the human psyche was accessed telepathically to then put these images around the earth in these places so that it would trigger in every human subconsciously or superconsciously to be drawn to these places and to look for them and to figure them out. Done on purpose. Okay. The reason I say that is because all of these things are pointing around the world, and I talk about this in my book. All these things are, these sayings, and people don't really understand what they mean. As above, so below. As without, so within. And that's the corruption, right? Yeah, Newgrange. Where is Newgrange? Yeah, right. Peter, where is Newgrange? Newgrange is, well, Peter will tell you. Peter, type it in the because I'm going to continue what I'm talking about while he's doing that. So it's in the UK. We'll start with that. Peter, give them the knowledge about Newgrange. So literally, right? Because that's what Peter, let me tell you what Peter said, okay? Peter, I'll put it up on the screen for you and I'll read it, right? Newgrange is the highest chakra point on the planet. It's 5 billion years old and the oldest point on the planet. It is literally all of these chakra points that I'm referring to are literally the chakra points of the planet, which means when the planet was formed, that's why it goes back 5 billion years. When the planet was formed, these chakra points, just like when you were born, the chakra points are on your body and they're there forever. Okay. So, right. Right. I'm going to get into that right now, Rick. Rick's like, I was zoned out during the tree explanation. I'm going to get further into that, brother. This is why I just stopped for a second, but I'm going to get further into that. So literally this is what Peter's talking about. Okay. And this is what Ra is talking about. Ra went into the human psyche and went into the tree of life of the human mind, which is literally the pneumogastric nerve center in our body, which is literally has been called the tree of life for 5,000 years in the human body. As within, so without, as below, so above is the correct way of saying what I just said when I said as above, so below. Most of you know it the corrupted way, which is telling you of a caste system and getting you used to the idea that there's somebody above you that's in control, and it's not you. As above, so below. As without, so within. As in heaven, so on earth. That says God's in charge. That says one person is in charge, and getting you used to the idea that somebody is always above you in charge. That's the caste system. That's the corruption of the Atlanteans, the Luciferians, the Anunnaki. All those people are the same, with just different names, by the way. So the tree of life, okay, is that literally is the wheel of life in the Orient, right? All of the Asian people. It is literally the tree of life for all of the Celts and Vikings. That is every religion that has to do with Europe, Southern, Western, Northern, and Eastern Europe. All of the religions that have come out of that is they use the tree of life. That literally is what is going on within you, but it's also going on without the planet itself. And that's why they show you the tree with the root system underneath. That's the underworld. That's the inner world of the planet. And what you see on the outside of a tree growing out into the world, you're going to find that the root network is just as large underground and has to be, so the tree doesn't just fall over. Okay, so that network underground is just as big, and the 0 point is where? Is literally just at the ground level. If you walked up to the tree and reached down and put your hands at the base of the tree on the dirt, that's the 0 point for the tree. That's literally the 0 point for the tree. Okay. And it's everything that you see on the outside. There's just as much down under the earth. Okay. You are the same. Everything that you are inside is outside. So everything that your spirit is inside is just as big as what you are outside. And that's reflective of your personality and your aura that comes off of you. Okay. And so people's auras, stronger auras and larger auras, tells you how much that they are spiritual, because that expands outward and inward at the same time. That was what all of the religions of the East called the underworld. The underworld was within. That was the word within, and not some evil place where Satan dwelled. And then that was corrupted when they created hell, which was never a place in any religion until all of a sudden it was. And that happened at the Council of Nicaea, the Second Council of Nicaea, when they changed all the Bibles. Then hell was created, and hell was the bad place you were going to go to if you don't do what we tell you to do. And then everything that they corrupted with the churches became law. And if you didn't abide by what the church said, you were going to hell. And so then you're manifesting this place. I'm going to go to hell because I'm not one of the chosen. I haven't been baptized. I'm going to be one of the left behind. I'm not going to go during the rapture when this Jesus character returns to get everybody in his car. Everybody pile into the bus. You're going to heaven. The rest of you stay out because it's your judgment. You, I find wanting. You did not obey. And that's the caste system, that you must obey, and that there's a line drawn in the sand, and that if you don't cross over to the good side at the right time, then you're not going to go to heaven. All of that was a corruption of that oil that ascends through your body into your brain and illuminates your brain and helps you to ascend every month. And that was a corruption to keep you away from that story. Even the Santa Claus, you're going to get a piece of coal. And the truth is, what is a piece of coal but almost a diamond? So the truth is, even when they're telling you coal is what you're going to get because you get nothing good, you don't get any presents. That was still a story that they were teaching children about that ascension oil, and to be a good person and to be good and to be good for goodness sake, because Santa Claus is coming to town. And that was the same thing as Jesus going down to Bethlehem and being reborn and going to heaven, and then expanding your consciousness, the Christos, which I've talked about on the show and I put in my book. Santa Claus is the same. The Thor story of Ragnarok and Thor, and I was just talking about this, and the reason why I made this connection. So I was watching Thor, the television movie, and I wasn't thinking, and Thor was explaining the tree of life to what's her name, whatever her character name was in the show, and he drew the lines on the map. She had the planets, the 9 worlds of the Viking religion, and he drew lines around it and said, "This is Teldrassil." Am I saying that right? Teldrassil, the tree of life. And when he drew that around there, I was like, "That's the Force. That's literally the tree of life. That's literally the tree of life that is in our bodies. That is, okay, as above, so below, as within, so without, as below, so above." I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay." And then I realized that's the neural network in our brain. And then even though I've been posting stuff about it, I actually got it on another level by seeing that, and then all of it overlapped. It was the same thing when I tell the story that our chakra points are not the numbers that we think they are, 1 through 7. They're actually 3 through 9. And when you shift your thinking and understand 3, 6, and 9 and how that governs the universe, and you shift in your mind the numeral system from 1 to 7, and you go, no, 1 is actually 2 places below the body, outside of the body, and you shift your thinking and go, 3 is the red ray chakra. That means 6 is the heart chakra, and 9 is the crown chakra. And when you realize that, it changes your perspective, and that actually shifts you and your energy and the way you see the universe. And I did the same thing when he drew the lines of the tree of Teldrassil around the planets. And then I realized, and because of being a scientist and going to be a nuclear physicist when I was in college, I shifted everything into place and overlapped the Force from my Jedi training, the tree of life, the as within, so without, the tree of life in our body, the pneumogastric nerve is the 0 point of the tree. And then it goes out and expands and controls everything above, below, inside, and out. And then that balances our chakras. And then when you balance all of your chakras, you become, you're doing the work inside and outside. So that's as within, so without. Then you expand your consciousness outward, but it also expands inward. And all of that hit me like a map, and they all overlap the same way, that shifting 3, 6, and 9 in my mental picture of the chakras, so that the 3, 6, and 9 is literally, our chakras are not 1 through 7, they're 3 through 9, the ones that are the major arcana in our body. And I wrote that in my book. I believe I did. I got to make sure and go back and make sure that I made that shift in the book, because then I tested it on people without their knowledge. And explained it to see how they would react to it without me saying anything. And all of you guys, like Penny's just like, I totally get that. It makes so much more sense to me. Yes. As soon as you heard me say it, right? As soon as you heard someone say that, or you heard me say that, when you know enough about 3, 6, and 9, and then that's why I've been priming you guys with showing you the videos about 3, 6, and 9. And I've been doing that on purpose, because I was getting you guys used to the idea of what an understanding of 3, 6, and 9 and the Pythagorean theorem, and what Einstein knew, and what Nikola Tesla for sure knew, and what the Egyptians knew, and knowing that at some point, once you got that and grasped that concept, I was going to shift you and go, now apply that to the chakras, the actual right numbers. And I realized now the reason why. Because I noticed that Pythagoras at the time, they knew some vibrations, and we thought they were 1 through 9. And in fact, they were missing 3, 6, and 9 completely. And we just discovered 3, 6, and 9, the vibration of 3, 6, and 9 in 1938. A lot of things happened in 1938 for good and for bad on this earth. That was a shifting point, a very large dynamical shifting point, bigger than 2012. That you guys are unaware of. And literally, because of that, the harmonic resonance was wrong, and they had to add 3 notes to the resonance, and that was 3, 6, and 9. And that's because of Ragnarok. So Thor, during Ragnarok, there's a song by Amon Amarth called Crack the Sky. And it's literally a prayer to Odin during Ragnarok to have Odin crack open the sky. And I bring this up because the reading before the one I did yesterday, the one from last week or the week before, from Jamie Watson Wolf, it was last week when my father came through. My father said, "When the sky cracks open, you will see." And Jamie said that. The first thing she said to me, and then she stopped and said, "Leonard, I'll be back. I have to go get water. They're telling me I need to get some water for this." And she came back, and she didn't go back to that timeline. And then when she asked about it, my father said, "We can't talk about that mission right now here." And then they came through and talked about that mission yesterday. Okay, but that whole thing was a message. Most of the stuff that was being said by my father were direct messages to me that I can tell you about, but I had to figure them out. And when he said "crack the sky," that reminded me of the Viking entire prayer to Odin, and to definitely to Thor, and from Ragnarok. And I was like, wait a minute, there was a song that Amon Amarth wrote about this. So I looked up the song and I played it, and I was like, that's the prayer. It's the prayer to Odin. So it's literally during Ragnarok, the prayer for us down here, praying to the gods, praying to Thor, to let your hammer fly and crack the blackened sky. The blackened sky, Fenrir the wolf. Ragnarok is Fenrir the wolf covering the sky in darkness. Fenrir the wolf is the son of Loki, one of Loki's sons. He has two and a daughter. One of his sons is Fenrir. And Fenrir is evil like his father. And Cassie, welcome. And Fenrir is the evil bringer, bringing Sutur, which is basically what you would call the devil or Satan, and trying to bring about the evil taking over the world. So Fenrir covers the sky in darkness. And this isn't a literal clouds around the sky like everybody thought for centuries. It's literally the same as the devil shall rule the earth for a time. And then something happens and it locks the devil away. Well, in the Viking folklore, it was Thor, and Thor riding his chariot, being pulled by his two goats, not horses, two goats. And the goats are like his father's two blackbirds or crows or ravens that are sitting on his shoulders, which I have tattooed on my body, on my leg, on my left leg, from the knee down. I have Odin tattooed there, and he's got his birds on his shoulder. And one of the blackbirds faces forward to see the future, and the other one faces backwards to see the past. And he gave up his left eye, and they stand on his left shoulder. He gave up his left eye to have the sight. And so he's blind in one eye, and that was his third eye, to have the sight in his third eye. He gave up his left eye of seeing because he had his right eye, and his left eye becomes manifest of his vision becomes manifest by the two crows. One can see the past and one can see the future. So he can see the present with his with the third eye, which is his right eye. And all three of those become his awareness. So the awakening and able to see the past, present, and future all at once was the process of giving up his one eye, his left eye, to gain that sight. So the Thor's goats that pull are the same. One sees the future, one sees the past, and Thor can see the present. And they're immortal, and every day Thor murders them, cooks them, and eats them. And then every morning he resurrects them with Mjolnir, his hammer of war. And Thor's name, Thor means thunder. And Mjolnir, or Mjolnir, it's actually pronounced Mjolnir if you're Viking. Mjolnir is what everyone else says, but Mjolnir means lightning. So he's literally the god of thunder and lightning. Thor is thunder. That's the word. The Viking word Thor means thunder, and Mjolnir means lightning. And he would use Mjolnir and resurrect them every day, and they would drive his chariot. So the prayer is during the time of tribulation, the time of trouble, Ragnarok, to Thor to come and crack the blackened sky by letting your hammer fly. So Thor, who is also the champion of Midgard, Midgard is earth. Midgard in your mind, in your brain, is your third eye. Okay, Midgard is your pineal gland and your pituitary gland, and all that entire structure, and the hippocampus. So that whole structure in the center of your brain is your third eye. That's Midgard in the Viking folklore. And if you look at the Egyptian folklore, that's the eye of Horus. It's the exact same thing. And if you look at Santa Claus, his beanie, his cap that he wears is in the shape of what? Your hippocampus, your third eye, with the pituitary gland hanging off of it. That's the little tassel that hangs down. So that's literally that same portion of your brain that is the illuminating portion of your brain. So literally, my father said, when the sky cracks open, you will see. That's literally you're awakening your third eye. And that's what Thor does in that. And that reference was to Thor cracking the third eye, going down to earth, the same as Jesus coming down and descending into human form, and then ascending to the sky to do battle with Fenrir the wolf, and using the hammer of lightning, enlightening, illumination, and illuminating the sky, cracking the darkness of the sky and illuminating the mind's eye, the third eye. And so in the Viking folklore, that is the connection, the same connection and the same story of the Jesus descent and resurrection. And Thor was 33 years of age when Ragnarok happens, and he does this. It's the exact same thing. He descends down to Middle Earth, which was where his father threw him with the hammer. And the movie Thor was the reenactment of that, because he wasn't worthy of the hammer, and he descended him to earth where he was mortal, and he had to then ascend and become immortal again by being onerous and chivalrous and being right and being good for goodness sake, because Santa Claus is coming to town, because Jesus, the Christos, has to rise back up through the chakras. Thor had to do the same thing in that whole entire story. And when he then rose, the prayer is, and that's the time when you are in charge for that 2.5 days when you're waiting, and you're in charge and you are focusing on cracking the sky, and Thor, illuminate us with your illuminating warhammer by chasing the darkness away from us and illuminating our minds. It's the same exact story. And this is what Ra is talking about, that literally they went into the human psyche, into the human mind, and they literally looked at what would be the best way in a physical manifestation to get the attention of all of the people around the earth. So not only do we have these manifestations of religion all around the world, that every religion from every country that goes back thousands and thousands and thousands, tens, 20s, 30s, hundreds of thousands of years, they all have the exact same thing happening in them, told a different way. And then you have, on a physical way, a manifestation of stones erected into either cities or platforms or some sort of device around the earth, on the chakra points of the earth, to get people's attentions. Again, getting your attention to right yourself, because as within, so without, as below, so above. As we right ourselves on the planet, we're also righting the planet. So as we're healing ourselves and ascending as a human species, we're helping the planet to get back to where it was before the evil people took control of it and made it crooked and almost destroyed it. And we're fixing that throughout time for the last 75,000 years, some of us even longer than that. Some of us double that. I blew Jamie away when I said that. And she's like, you've been here for a really long time. I'm like, I've been here for 150,000 years plus. And she's like, what? Okay. And I wanted to say, at the time, and some of you were in the crowd, and so you knew, but I wanted to say at the time, and so were you just don't remember it. but I couldn't. I didn't type that. I should have. I didn't want to blow her away any more than I was. But I wanted to go, and you've been here that long too, Jamie. You just don't remember it. And so the truth is, not everybody has been here that long, but some of us have. Some of us have been doing this for a very long time to continue this, and some of you out there have been as well. Okay. Right. So Rick, I'm reading what Rick said in the chat, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. And Peter's talking too. I mean, Peter says the Irish devil is the Belrog. Yeah. The Belrog they talked about in Middle Earth by Tolkien. where Belrog was there, the Belrog, and they showed you that it was basically the devil, like Peter's talking about. And Middle Earth is the same as Midgard, which is Earth, which is here. This planet is Midgard. And Thor is the champion of Midgard. And when he comes down to Earth, then he takes some of the humans and brings an army with him to fight against Fenrir. And that's our energy and our creation as we ascend with Thor and the enlightenment from Thor. And that's the same thing as Jesus coming to Earth and then the rapture of taking souls with him back into heaven. It's the exact same story. And the Belrog in Tolkien's book was referring to, like Peter's talking about, the devil in the southern Western Viking folklore was called Belrog. And literally, what did he do? He was the champion of the people, talking about what's his name, Gandalf. And what did he do? He fell with Belrog into hell and died, but also killed Belrog. Then he ascended, and he was Gandalf the Grey, and he ascended. And how long was he gone before his ascension? They didn't find him for 2.5 days. And if you're paying attention to the movie or the book especially, 2.5 days later, they're in the forest that they ran to on that day. And guess who appears there but Gandalf the White, who is now ascended and is brighter and is illuminating the sky for them and illuminating the way. And then what does Gandalf do? He convinces them to become an army and fight against the armies of darkness. Do you see? So do you see what I'm saying? So the story that Tolkien wrote was the same story of the descension and the rebirth and the ascension and the illumination, and then the army fighting against the army of darkness. Do you see? Right. So then Rick says, during my awakening and a few times a year, as just as I close my eyes to sleep, what are you saying here? FT line, someone's thumb pushing through my forehead. Oh, yeah. Oh, it felt like, I get what you're saying. It felt like someone's thumb was pushing through my forehead, where my third eye and pushing like a jolt. It doesn't happen now. That's because your eye is opening. In the beginning, you needed a jump start, Rick, to open that eye. And so you were feeling that pressure. And a lot of people go through that. And they feel the pressure in their third eye. And sometimes they feel like as if someone's touching them with a finger or a thumb, and they feel like there's lightning. And that's the illumination of Thor's hammer cracking the sky open for you to see. And once your eye starts to open, then you don't feel that anymore. You just become more illuminated and you start becoming wiser. And so you don't actually feel that unless you really focus on it. Then you can. But when you first start, that's when you feel that. And we teach that to people that if you're feeling that pressure and you almost see lightning when you close your eyes, that's what they would tell you was Thor's hammer cracking the sky open for you. That was how they explained it to you as a Viking in that religion. But in Christianity, it was Jesus' ascension into heaven, his sacrifice on the cross, and him going to heaven, and him telling you that the way to heaven was through him. So it was explained by the Hebrews in a different way, but it's still the same story, right? So literally that's that. And then Denise said, I've been hearing a woman whispering in my right ear. That never happened before. Your right ear is always your guides, or your ascended masters, or your ancestors. It depends on your religion. The Native Americans and all the natives, they talk about your ancestors, and that's always guides. And then the Eastern philosophical, when you get into the Asians, they'll say ancestors as well. And then you'll hear people say guides more on the Western world. It's all the same thing. But when you're hearing words coming from the right side, that's always guides. Left side is darkness. Right side of your body, doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed. It's universal. So if you're hearing things from your right side, that's your guides talking to you. And you'll eventually, you'll almost hear the voices, because they're trying to get your attention. And then once you hear the whispering and you start paying attention to it, then it goes into your head, and it's the same. It comes through like if you put on headphones. If you put on two headphones, it sounds like somebody speaking in the middle of your head right at your third eye. That's why the CIA does that whole vibrational thing where they do tones at different speeds and different heights of vibration from ear to ear, back and forth, because those go into your head. So at first you'll hear words as in you're thinking to yourself, is that coming from somewhere right here in this reality? And then you realize that those words come in the same exact way, but it's for you to acknowledge them. And once you realize that you're being talked to from that right side, then from that point on, you still hear it the same way, but you internalize it after a while, instead of thinking that it's something external, because you realize there's nothing standing next to you that you can see. Okay. So, but what that is, that's your ancestors, that's your guides, that's your higher self talking to you and giving you information. Though that one on the right side, evil cannot talk there. So any words that come into you from your right side, they're not going to tell you murder, keep people, kill yourself. You're never going to hear negative shit from those people. And anyone who tells you that, they're lying. Okay. Because that just is not the way we are designed in this multiverse, period. No matter what anyone tries to say, it's not the way we're designed. Okay. So no one hears negative shit from the right side telling them to kill people. Okay. Even when they manifest themselves and have split personalities, that doesn't come from the right side. They may lie because their voice in their head tells them to lie and say it's from the right side, but it's a lie. Okay. So you're hearing it from the right side. That means it's your ancestors or your higher self or your guides. And then you internalize it when you realize that. And once you realize that, you never think, you keep looking to your right. But you'll see mediums when they're talking, you'll see them turn their head slightly to the right sometimes when they're getting clarification. And that's a natural instinct to do because it's still coming into your body from the right side. So your natural instinct is to turn your head towards the sound when you're trying to get a clarification. I do it too. And sometimes I don't realize I'm doing it. And people will point that out. And that's why when psychologists will say someone's lying, it's always because they look to the left, not because they look up to the right. When they will tell you in psychology that when someone looks off to the right or looks up to the right, it's usually them thinking. So they could be trying to think up a lie, but it's them thinking. But when people look up to the left or look to the left while they're talking to you, that's usually when they are telling a lie, almost exclusively 100%. Okay. And that's because the devil is on your left shoulder and the angel is on your right shoulder. So the devil is your ego. And that is the darkness and the bad part of yourself, of your psyche. And the angel is your not your consciousness, but your conscience. Okay. So you have your conscious, that's you, but your conscience is that thought part of you that says, don't do that. That would be wrong. And that's the opposite of your ego. That's what Freud referred to and Jung referred to as the id. They didn't give it a positive name. They just gave it a thing. And the ego was one thing, and the id was something else. The id is the little angel on your right shoulder. That's your conscience that says, don't do that thing. It's bad. You wouldn't want that to be done to you. But that's not the same thing. That's you. But there's a distinctive voice that comes to your right side, and different voices, and you hear them. And as time goes, you realize they have different personalities. When they speak, they say things differently, they talk differently, they have different tones, they feel differently, their energy is different. Some people, like one of the girls that I talked to, I haven't for a while, but we used to do shows together. I talk like one of her guides. She pointed that out. I like to say however a lot. And one of her guides says however a lot, right? However this, however that. And I do that. And even in my book, I go back and I'm editing my book and I'm like, I need to take a couple of those howevers out, because I do that a lot. And she pointed that out, and not that it was a negative thing. She just thought it was curious that I talk like one of her guides, because he talks the same way and says however a lot. And I said, some of us just use that word, and I use the word moreover. And there's some people that use that word exclusively instead of however. They'll say moreover. I use both, but I use however more than I use moreover. It's just who I am. However, anyway, so I hope that answered that. So the tree of life that Ra's referring to here is internalized in us, but it's externalized. So the earth itself has the same tree of life, and the 0 point for the tree is literally the earth, the top of the crust that we walk on. If you go right to that and put your hands there at the base of you're literally at the middle point of that tree's existence. Everything you see above ground, there's exactly the same amount below ground that you can't see. That's the as above, so below. You have that within you. So your neural network, that is the pneumogastric nerve in your mind, that is in your head, in your brain, that goes throughout your entire body, is that nervous system that works your body, that's in that video that I gave you, is literally the internalized tree of you. That is what is within your body, right? That is the representation of all that is within your body from your third eye down, and everything that you are physically and your spirit outwardly that you can't see. So it's the reverse for us. We can't see the internalized, but then we can see it like on a computer and see what it is, but we can't see the external. And that's why we show in a lot of pictures the crown chakra, and then we have the crown chakra expanding out like a tree of lightning or energy going away from us. And that gives people the assumption that the 0 point is our mind's eye, but it's not. It's our heart chakra. So that's why the heart chakra, being the sixth chakra, that you have some below yourself that extend into the earth, just like trees do and plants do. So you're not aware of it, but however further out you are from your head upward into the universe, you're also downward into the earth. So we're literally, part of our energy is literally attached to this earth and mingling with this earth, just like a part of our energy is mingling with the universe. And we're the 0 point is our heart chakra. Okay. Right. Right. I know, Rick. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm reading the chat now without saying it out loud. Penny says that I used to think that I was going crazy. And then Rick said, I've been waiting since a child to hear or see someone, literally. Cassie then says, I know, right? Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. She said, laugh out loud as you jump up and it's like, what the, and what the fuck? But she had it in, F with a bunch of little, doohickeys. What the heck was that? Or what the F was that? And no one is here, and I'm hearing this clear as day, right? Yeah, and that happens. It happened to me when I was younger. I was hearing voices. I don't think I've ever told this story online, maybe once or twice. I would hear voices in my head, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And I was a kid. I was little, 7, 6 years old, 8 years old, and I didn't know what was going on. And I thought, oh my God, I'm freaking out. And my mom got scared because I was saying that I could literally, it was like standing in a room with 30 or 60 people, and I could hear every word they were all saying at once, and they were all talking over each other and all talking at the same time. And I could hear these voices, and my father thought, oh, there's something wrong with him, and went and started talking to doctors and psychologists, and they were testing me, and they were like, no, he's completely sane. He's in there. I don't know what's going on with him. And then my father looked at me and went, okay, I think I do. And so my father was like, we need to enhance your psychic training. And he started asking me questions, and I started telling him, and he started working with me. Literally, when it happens, I want you to come to me and get me, and I want to talk while it's happening. And so the next time it happened, I literally would talk to him, and he would ask me what I was hearing, and then he would have me focus. I need you to focus on one of the voices and tell me what the voices are saying. And so then he would have me go through the voices, and none of them were saying anything evil. None of them were personalities but they were all, what I was hearing was people. I was hearing guides. I was hearing dead people. I was hearing people's thoughts that were awake. And he was like, okay, we need to teach you to turn that down and to be able to use it for what you need to. So you need to be able to focus and not be afraid of the voices, but just know that you're hearing everybody, like as if you turn the television up loud and everybody was talking all at once. So you have a volume control, and you literally have, when your third eye opened completely, your volume control was on 100, and you need to turn it down. So you need to literally turn it down, and then only turn up each individual person when you focus on them. And that was my introduction to being a medium. Was some of us come through that way. When you turn on, you're on full. You're on full blast, and you don't understand what's going on. So he was aware of that, and then he was literally teaching me the same thing, Rick, going back to, and Denise hearing the voices. And going, what the fuck is that? The same thing when he was saying, what are they saying? What are you hearing? And then talk to them, ask them questions and see if they'll interact with you. If they won't interact with you, it's because it's a person who's not psychic and not dead and not a guide. You're hearing someone's thoughts from another human being. And so you know what's going on there. So if they answer you, ask them who they are. And literally that was part of my training. Till literally that was when I was introduced to Chief White Cloud and Little Dove and Yellow Feather by my father, because they were already friends of ours. But then it was a different kind of conversation that I was taken over to them and met them with just my father and explained what was going on. And that was when I started my shaman training. I've never talked about that until today about who it was, but it was literally a Native American chief and his wife, a priestess, and Yellow Feather, an elder in the West Coast Native American tribes out here, big ones. That's why when I moved to Arizona, I was happy to be living over there in Apache and Navajo and Anasazi territories, because those were the prominent Native Americans that even were out here, even though they have different smaller tribe names. So literally Chief White Cloud and his wife did a lot of my training, and Yellow Feather did a lot of my training. I give them a lot of credit for helping me with the astral projection and the dream walking and that part of it. My father with the psychic part and the mediumship and speaking to the other side. So that's why I'm imparting this to you guys here now, because some of you are realizing that you have these abilities and you're starting to wake up to those. And so what was that? And why was I'm glad you asked those questions. That's the kind of stuff that I want to have people ask me so that I can then answer that for you guys to help you. Okay, so Ra literally looked into the tree of life of the humans here. Do I teach? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. You and I haven't talked for a while since we had that one conversation, Dimitri. We haven't talked, but yes, I do. I teach all of this. This is what I'm writing in my book, is a introduction into this. But I've been teaching this for almost 40 years now, since I was a kid. I literally got my Merlin title at the age of 19. And the Jedi title, which no one even knew there was a Jedi council and a Jedi school in New Zealand. I got that in 97. I got my, then in 2004, I was knighted by the Roman Catholic Church, which made me a minister. And then in 2016, I officially got my indoctrination through Universal Life Church in Phoenix, Arizona, to be a Christian minister. So I literally have been teaching spirituality since I was 20 years of age. Not a joke, right? My book that I'm writing currently, I don't have it published yet. I believe it's finished, but I'm not sure. I just hit 50,000 words, so it's just at 200 and a few pages, but I haven't published it yet. I'm hoping to get it out this year. They're pushing me. I took a week off. They're pushing me to get it done as soon as possible from the other side. So I bashed it out in the month of June into July, and then I've taken off this last 7 days from writing. But I literally went from June 4th to July 4th. I literally wrote that book in 30 days. Every day I was writing for 6 to 8 hours a day. Not kidding you. But I do teach. I work with people. You can ask most of the people that are in this group right now that are in this crowd. I've worked with them for years, and they work with people as well. I literally teach everything that I know to everybody: life coaching, spiritual coaching, even like spell counseling and writing. And literally I taught, there's 5 different paranormal groups that are in the United States currently that I literally taught the psychic that works with them and them. I have a group that is a paranormal group where that's all they talk about is paranormal tech. It's called Paranormal Tech on Facebook. And literally I've had that for, I don't know when I created it, 2017, 2019 or something. But I literally been doing this. I was telling people about energy vampires back in the 90s, when people were like, is that a thing? They didn't even know what it was. Now it's normal to know that. I was teaching people that vampires with the drinking of the blood were not actually doing that. And it was your life force that they were actually drinking. And it just was manifest in that they were trying to drink your blood, but it was your life force they were trying to get. And people were saying that, 20,000 years ago, they used to actually drink blood. They may have, but they've evolved to today. There's people that drink blood now. Yeah, those are people who think they're vampires, just like the Satanists think that they're following the devil. But there's only 2 million of them because it's not the real religion of evil. The same thing. There's probably about 50,000 people worldwide who drink blood because they think that they have vampirism, when vampirism is actually sucking your aura. And I've proved that. I have a reel that shows you that literally the human aura. And if you actually pay attention, I show you 3 different phases of the human aura, one of which is a woman who is possessed at the time. And it actually says it on the image. It actually says female, 53 years of age, on voluntary possession, showing what your aura looks like. I was part of a study where we showed how your aura, a picture of your aura, and had someone who was an energy vampire, and how they would take your aura from you and what your aura looked like after your aura was gone, and you could sense it and feel it, and you were drained and felt sick and ill. And then we showed you a picture of your aura and how your aura the first time was blue and beautiful and stuck out of your body about 3 feet. And then after the energy vampire took your aura was literally like inches off of your body, and their aura is now glowing red. So the whole red blue Jedi Knight with their lightsabers, the red, green, and red, blue. Those were the colors of the aura. That's why they chose that for the Jedi, and the Sith Lords all had red. That is the vampires, the energy vampires. Their aura is red. It's not blue, because they're evil. And the blue aura or green auras are your aura. And then people see auras in different colors that come off of you, and that's a personality aura that is from your tree of life. Your projection of your energy that comes off of you. It's not the personal aura of your physical body. That's the aura that I'm talking about, where they drain your energy. And if you ever have that happen to you, take a bath and use rose petals or rose oil. The rose oil, or the scent of roses. And the reason why in the fall we use for pumpkins, the pumpkin spice has cinnamon in it, and we use cinnamon all the way through Christmas and all of that scent. And that cinnamon and rose oil actually enhances your aura in your body physically. That goes back thousands of years. So vampires literally, and yes, and if the true vampirism, I like what you're saying there, because true vampirism is the ones that are actually, people are aware of it, and they showed you this in some of the movies. If there's an exchange there and they don't drain your aura completely, right, then there is an exchange of energy in both the vampire. This is what Dimitri's saying, and I'll put it up on the screen for you, okay? Because he's absolutely right, and I didn't get into this, but I'm glad that you went there. True vampirism is an exchange that is beneficial for both the vampire and the human. If it harms someone, then it's not being done properly. That's when it's being done, like when they rape you. It's the same thing when you have sex. It's the exact same thing. So literally, the Vulcan mind meld done against somebody's will is the same manifestation of that. It becomes a like rape. And if they take your energy without asking you, and you don't willing to give it to them, they can still get it from you. And this is what Dimitri's referring to. But if you're aware of it, and they're not going to take all of your energy, they actually return some energy to you, but it's a negative energy. So you have to be in service to self to want that to happen. But it is, honestly, but some energy vampires are not evil, and they are actually using that for beneficial reasons. And it's like Reiki, where you're actually giving energy to the person. If you do it against the person's will, they can block you, because you're not, we have free will. Everyone has free will. So someone has to, and so there are people, this is what Dimitri's referring to. There are people who know this, and this is what they did with the movies in the vampires, where you see some people who will let vampires drain part of their energy to keep them, like a drug, to keep them going, but they won't take it all so that they can replenish themselves. And then there's a reward for that. There's a sexual energy that happens during sex that's the same way, where with a male and female, where you exchange energy. It's just like if you go on stage and you're a rock star, you're giving out this energy as a bard from your music to the crowd, and then they're returning energy to you. And anyone who's ever been on stage in any way has experienced that, and they'll tell you it's like this exchange of energy. It really is an exchange of energy. It's the same thing. You're willingly giving energy and transferring energy between each other, and it makes you stronger. And that's what Dimitri is referring to. When they actually are doing it knowingly, the vampire knows it and the person knows it, and they're doing it on purpose. There's an exchange of energy that makes them both stronger, because you're adding and mixing energies together. And so that's that same transfer that people have in the pagan ways of sexual energy. And that's the sexual alchemy that literally we're talking about in the ascension oil, that is the Christos, the Christ ascension into opening your third eye. And if you guys are both doing it at the right time, but not expending that energy wrongly. Once you do the illumination, and this is the right, and I'm going to get into a sexual right energy that I've never talked about, that is ancient, and only people who know the ancient practices will know. If you have two people that are attuned to the same month, and they both get illuminated at the exact same time, and you figure out to the day of when they get illuminated, and then immediately after their illumination, the two of them do a sexual rite and have sex, the euphoric effect is amplified because both of them have raised their vibration at the exact same time, and within a few minutes or an hour of each other, and then because it's the same day, and then they have sex, then that unlocks all of that energy that they've just illuminated, and it mixes that illumination together, and that enhances the illumination tenfold over the 1,000-fold that it was already done. And then any creative energy, if they tunnel that energy externally into a spell, and you have a whole ritual going on, that enhances the spell energy 1,000-fold. And if the two of them don't do that and they just experience that at the same time, then that's just illuminates them even more so. And it's just incredible. But if you take that energy then and use the charm of making, that from that energy, it just the spell that you cast is 10,000-fold stronger. Same thing with the aura on a smaller scale. You can do the same thing with auras, and that's what Dimitri is referring to in what he's talking about right there. No, I agree with you. Most vampires are wonderful people. I have the ability. Everyone has the ability of vampirism. Everyone does. You have that ability in you, and we don't teach that to people because some people are aware of it. It doesn't make them evil. It's just that they understand how to transfer that energy. I don't really talk about that. It's just like saying, it's literally like saying the truth about this world is that there is no right and wrong, and that people who are raping, pillaging, and murdering people are actually serving the entire species just as much as a priest is, because that's the truth. Okay, that's the actual truth. But we don't try to encourage people to go out and try to do it negatively without the knowledge, right? So that's exactly where I was going with that. So Dimitri says, good. I was just making sure that we're not, demonizing an entire group of people. No. I just don't. We don't, as a rule, without telling people exactly what you and I just went through here, to explain to them the difference between right and wrong. Because if we just blanket statement say, well, there is no wrong, then people will go, really? Then I'm going to dabble in this vampirism and see if I can steal people's energy. And if they figure it out, they'll do it. And now they're doing it forcibly, which is rape. And it's wrong. And so that's the only reason that we don't really get into it, because the truth is that everyone has that ability. And most of the people, like you said, most of the people on this earth that know about and call themselves vampires are not actually evil. It's only 14% of the population. So in every circle, the maximum is 14%, but it's usually less than that are actually doing it for evil purposes, because there's so few people doing a transfer of aura energy or vampire energy, the energy vampires, and there's because that portion is a lot smaller of the planet. So the people that are evil that are doing it but it's still close to the same. But most of them, just like most of the people on the earth, are actually good people. But if you tell everybody that there is no right and wrong, which is the first fucking thing Ross said in book 1, there is no right and wrong. And then he blows past it, and Dawn doesn't go back and go, wait a minute, what do you mean there's no right and wrong? Ross said everything serves the all, because it's true. You can't have the people here ascend in any way without having this. Everybody was lazy. We are lazy. God is lazy. God realized that. The creator of the universe said, fuck, I'm lazy. Because we sat on our asses. Oh, I know I'm God. I know I'm going to ascend, so I'll get there whenever. So things weren't progressing fast enough, and we had to put a firearm under our own ass. So we created this evil boogeyman that could chase us around. But it's just as vital. You have to have the ego. You have to have evil, right? Because you have to have good. So you can't have light without dark, and you can't have good without evil. So for it to work and balance, you have to have both. That means they're both just as important. Do you see? But because evil is evil, You don't need everybody to be 50-50. You don't need 50% of the population to be evil because it's harder to be good than it is to be evil. And so that's why evil people have to be 95% evil to ascend, and good people only have to be 51%. But to achieve that 51% is just as hard as achieving the 95% evil. So it's not easier to ascend on the evil side, but it's not easier to ascend on the good side than it is evil, even though the numbers would suggest that they are, but they're not. It's just that the truth is evil is more seductive. And that's why Yoda said that. Is the dark side stronger? No, not at all. Just easier, more seductive because it's instant. Evil is instant gratification. So the instant gratification takes less time, and that's why people will run down that road if you don't tell them the difference between good and bad, right? So, narcissism is evil. He says, Demetrius says, maybe instead of energy vampires, we should use narcissists because that is what they are. Narcissists are energy vampires. So when I don't like to use the term energy vampires either. I used to 30 years ago, and then I got away from that. And I say, narcissists. And now I've even changed it to just people in service to self because I don't like that connotation either. I agree with you. I didn't like that back then, but it was the only way to describe what people were doing in a violent way with energy 30 years ago because the people of this earth did not have the wherewithal to go to a better word. Now we have, so I don't use the term energy vampire ever. I always use the term narcissism or narcissists. And then if people don't, if people are above that vibration, I'll use the term in service to self. And that means that all of that means the same thing. But violent energy vampires should be the correct term today that we should use instead of just an energy vampire, because vampirism in and of itself is not evil. It is those people who use it against other people's wills or without their knowledge, which is the same thing as somebody raping somebody, drugging them and raping them, roofing them and having sex with them. It's the same thing. And that was what in Star Trek in the 60s they were showing you with the mind meld, that it became illegal by the empire of or the government of Vulcan, because if you did it against somebody's will, it was a violation of their mind, as if you raped them. So they wouldn't do that, and that's why you saw that when Spock did it in an aggressive manner, the few times that he did, that you saw him actually have tears, and the other Vulcan, and there was one that he did against a woman who was a Vulcan who was not half human, and she cried as well. That was because it was rape, and he felt bad for doing it, but had to because literally they were trying to murder the president of the Federation and start a war between the Vulcans and the humans, or the Klingons and the humans. And literally they were trying to uncover it. And so he had to literally force himself into her mind, and they both had tears. He was crying, and so was she, while they were talking. And most people just got the idea that he was crying because she was crying because they were melded as one. Well, that was part of it, but you have to realize that they were Vulcans. He was half human, so he could have emotion, but that's not why they were crying. They were crying because of the horrifying effort that it took for Spock to rape her mind. And so she was crying because he was raping her, and he was crying because he was forced to do that because she wouldn't give him any other alternative, and he had to do that. And they both know that that's a crime in their governmental system for their spirituality, but he was forced to do it, and he had to make amends for that. And he did. And if you watch the movies, you see that he actually did a lot of meditating afterwards and returned home for a while. And then he died, of course, and had to get put back into his body. But you see my point. So literally, I agree with you that they shouldn't be. I don't like using the term energy vampire unless we're saying negative energy vampire. So narcissism is a better term. But some people don't get that on a spiritual level, because when you say narcissism, they just think of narcissistic people. They don't make the connection that means psychologically, spiritually, and physically, right? So this is why we're trying to teach this entire thing. So I love when you're here, bro. You should come here more often. I loved our conversation that we had as well. So yes, I do teach all of this, and I'm writing it in my book, which is all about the spirituality and what has been going on this planet for the last 25 to 75,000 years. And that people are unaware of, that some of us are talking about now, because the earth is in a place where there's a good portion of the population that will actually get this information. Right now, I'm not actually charging anything, bro. I just work with people. And I haven't been charging. I know people keep telling me, why are you not charging people to be a life coach? You can make a living at it. And I'm literally talking to Cassie, who's making comments, literally talking to Cassie about it. Her and I are literally been talking about this very thing and possibly starting to charge people. I was talking to her today about it. About me possibly starting to charge people to do this, because it looks like I might be in a position where I have to start making money again. I'm on government funds right now, and I'm taking care of my mother. But if I don't have my mother with me, if I have to put her into a home, which it's looking like I'm getting closer, I'm going to have to be able to pay for my own way, and I don't make enough money to do that, and I have to get out of the state. So if you're I may be coming up with a price tag to start doing this, depending on what I'm teaching, because I can teach just general life coaching that has nothing to do with spirituality. And I work with people and have for years. My Reiki master teacher, who was a Wiccan priestess, did that for a living. And she said the whole time she knew me for the last 35 years, why are you not charging for this? You are just as good as I am. And I've literally made a living doing this. And I said, well, I don't need to. I'm a Reiki master teacher. I could charge people money for Reiki or for attunements. And people say, why don't you do that? You have the license. Because I don't need to right now. Right. And so I have a mission that I'm supposed to be doing. But if it comes to a crossroads, and this is what I've been contemplating in the last 2 weeks, if it comes to a crossroads of I have to do something physically to take care of myself and still do the mission at the same time, I am going to have to start charging for people. Right. So there is no price yet, Dimitri, but we can talk depending on what you want us to work on, because I can teach you how to cast spells, how to write spells. I can teach you literally about that entire industry. I can teach you Reiki. I can teach you spirituality. I can life coach you into, and I have groups that literally some of the people in this audience right now are in, where I teach you how to unlock your abilities and how to figure out what abilities you brought with you and which ones you want to use, whether you're trying to make money at it. You don't even know how many. Cassie knows, and so does Denise. Penny may, and I know Peter does for sure, because Peter and I have gone back almost 10 years now. He knows how many people that are out there right now that are charging people money. I am the one who gave them the skills, or unlocked. I didn't give them to them because I don't give you anything. I'm the one that helped them unlock their skills, and they ran out to the world and they're charging money to be a medium. They're doing ghost hunting. They're doing exorcisms. They're doing teaching classes in spirituality and Christianity, and they're literally making a living at it. And I literally had my ex-wife, her and I have been doing this for 35 years. She actually said, doesn't it bother you sometimes when all these people come to you and they work with you for 6 months or a year, and then they disappear, and then you find out they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year? And I'm like, no, because they're doing good work. And she's like, but and when I need the money, I'll start. And I've literally been trying not to. And I agree with you. And that is exactly Dimitri said, you guys. He said, you deserve to have a fair exchange of energy for your energy. Agreed. And that's where people always say, everything should be free. And I say that, and I was taught that. And that's why I brought up my Reiki master teacher. She said the same thing. We have to charge money so they realize that what you're giving them is worth something. It's an exchange. You wouldn't tell your mechanic he's putting the energy and his knowledge of into your car to make your car go. You wouldn't tell him you should be doing that for free. You wouldn't tell a doctor who is doing surgery on you to fix your arm, I shouldn't have to pay you because you should just do this because it should be free. You would never do that. You wouldn't, right? So I agree with you, brother. I love you. You're a great mind. You're a great spirit. And I would love to work with you in any field that you want to pick my brain on. But as far as cost, I'm looking into that, and I think that you showing up here today and saying that was divine providence, if you will, because I was literally talking about this morning with Cassie, and yesterday and the day before that. The last couple of weeks we've been talking. In the last few days, I've been talking very serious about this and working with Cassie on getting guidance on how I should be functioning and what I should be doing going forward. And she's been telling me exactly what you're telling me. And I'm getting chills right now from this, from saying this. It's funny that Cassie popped in again because she's been in and out since the show's been going on, and she popped in right when you were saying that, and was able to be here for you to reply. Right? So yeah, right, exactly, right. So if you can't see, or Cassie said, Dimitri, you need to come to onto the Orion Rising page so we can see his comments, so she can't see your comments because of wherever that you are. See, the comments come in here to StreamYard. I can see your comments, and you must have grabbed it from either my page or returning to the Old Ways page, and she's in the Orion Rising page, and the chats stay in there for them, and so you're in there and she can't see what you're saying, so I have to say it out loud so she knows what you're saying. And then you probably can't see what Cassie's saying, so I have to say what's being said here. It's just like if the people were on YouTube right now, none of this conversation, they can't see any of your words because it's on Facebook. And if somebody from YouTube says something, you may or may not be able to see it in the chat you're in. If you're reading me in the chat on Facebook, you wouldn't be able to see anybody from YouTube, whatever they say, unless I say it out loud. So that's funny that you guys are. She's like, wait, where is he? He must not be in this chat. So yes, Cassie said a little deja vu, huh, Leo? Yeah, and that was my point, was that you popped back in at the same time as he was leading down that road, and I think that was divine providence. My dream today, Dimitri, you missed it. My dream today was along those lines, the same thing that Ra was talking about. I'll reiterate it really quickly for those of you listening around the world on the MP3 broadcast. You might go, we already covered this an hour and a half ago. But my dream this morning, the last one that I had, because I was out of body my whole night, not a joke, but the last one that I had lasted from like 6:30 in the morning until 8:30. And literally I got up at 7 and went to the bathroom and laid back down and went to sleep, and it continued. And in the dream, it's somewhere on this earth, and I didn't know the time. I wasn't really, that wasn't the focus. The focus was the people. The people didn't seem right to me. And I was watching them, and they seemed a little more aggressive than I thought they should have been, but they weren't violent towards each other, but they were aggressive, and they seemed edgy. And as I was interacting with them, trying to figure out what was going on, they were harming themselves, pulling out knives and cutting themselves and like chopping off part of their fingers. And they would do it and they wouldn't feel any pain. And some of them didn't even bleed, but they're very proud for doing it, but they didn't know why they were doing it. So I was trying to figure out what was going on. And I noticed that it was most people. So I then, because of my shamanistic training from the Native Americans, and that's why I was thinking about Chief White Cloud and Little Dove and Yellow Feather this morning, was because of that, because of their training that I got as a boy. And I mentioned that earlier on. And, me being only 5% Native, but it's enough to where that makes a completely different change. And learning the shamanistic ways, and especially the dream walking part of that. And so I used that information and went, I must be dreaming. This is not a reality. This is a dream, just like the illusion of being awake. So therefore, there's a metaphor here, and I have to figure out what's going on. There's something message that's happening here. So then I asked my spirit guides or my ancestors, what is the message that you're trying to tell me with these metaphors that I'm seeing? What am I missing? And of course, they don't solve anything for you. They always just give you tools and more esoteric messages, right? And so they literally said, you're asking the wrong questions. My question was to them, why are you doing this? And then it was, someone is behind them. I have to find and stop the one behind them. So then I was trying to find this person and trying to get leads from these people in some way to go to a place where this person who made them do this stuff was actually at. And that's when I asked my ancestors, and they said, you're asking the wrong questions. It is not important to actually physically find who is behind this. What's more important and most important is that you need to fix it. And this is the mission that I have had the whole time anyways, of literally, figuring out when I asked, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to be doing? Everything that I've gotten, this is being awake now, was was rewrite history. And I'm like, rewrite history? You mean like write it? You mean like fix it? And they're like, yes, but a bigger concept. And I was like, rewrite history? I don't understand. And it took me years to figure that out. And I figured out that it literally, because what I talked about earlier with the planet shifting and being off kilter and being crooked and being evil, that we're literally having to fix what they damaged. And in doing so, we're actually changing history because they rewrote history in a negative way. When the Anunnaki got here, which is the Orion Crusaders, which is the Cabal, the Atlanteans, the evil ones, the gods that Vishnu and them were fighting against, and they're all the same people. They introduced that pine cone they're holding up is them controlling your pineal gland, and the little bag they're carrying is the knowledge of, not the knowledge of good and evil. Everyone's like, was the knowledge of good and evil like the tree of life? No, it's the knowledge of how to rule and create and build societies. And what they're building is this society on this planet of the caste system of someone above you being in charge and you being the slave down below. And literally everything on this earth was corrupted. The religions, your job, your schools, everything, governmental systems, they're all set up so that you have this figurehead on top, or the 1% elite rich people who believe they own the planet and everything else filters down. So they corrupted all religions into as above, so below, as without, so within, instead of the true term as below, so above, and as within, so without. And that's even in the Bible in Matthew 18, chapter 18, verse 18, literally God saying, what you reap on the earth, I shall too reap in heaven. What you sow on earth, I shall too sow in heaven. Telling you as a God that you create this reality, not me. I'm not creating this for you, and you have to do as I say, not as I do. You are creating this, and I will make it what you want. Okay? So literally, and all religions have that. And that's what I was leading up to when you got here. That was what I was talking about and showing when you came in. So my question has always been what? And then I'm asking the wrong question. And then the answer was fix. And so in my dream, again, the same scenario came up that I was pondering for 7 years up until 2015 or so. And literally in my mind's eye, in my dream, the same scenario was playing out. And the answer was, you're asking the wrong question. You don't need to be looking for the thing that's causing this. You need to just fix it by fixing them. So this guy was there, and he was going to help me, even though he was one of these people that were under the spell. He was trying to help me. But then he pulls out a knife and starts cutting off his left index finger. And I stopped him. And he was very proud that he was doing it, and they did it as if they were hypnotized, as if they were brainwashed. And I stopped him, and I took the knife from him, and he wasn't bleeding, but his finger was cut to the bone. And I reached over and grabbed hold of his finger, and when I did, I'm a Reiki master teacher. When I did, a light came out of my hand, illuminated, and it healed him instantly. And he looked at me and went, wow. And I watched the energy go through his entire body, and his focus changed. And he looked at me and he said, thank you. And I said, we need to tell everyone. And he said, I don't have that ability. How can I do what you did? And I said, yes, you do. And I put my hand over his heart. And again, my hand illuminated, and it went into his heart. And what did it do? It aligned his heart chakra. It opened his heart chakra, which opened his third eye. And as soon as that happened, I looked at him and said, now you go and do the same thing and tell them to do the same thing and pass this on to everyone. And so literally that was a metaphor for, and this is why I went to the backstory, because it was the same metaphor as to what I was asking about the earth, which is the same metaphor of what Jamie Watson-Wolf in her reading of me on her group yesterday was talking about. That literally then I have this thing happen where when I'm sleeping, I'm literally still working out of body, that I never actually rest. My body rests and my spirit leaves, and I'm doing more work. And then I come back into the body when I'm needed or when I wake up. And then I wake up and sometimes feel like I've been awake all night long. And then I go about the day doing what I do here. And then I go back and lay down at night and go to sleep. My spirit leaves, and I go and I do more shit in other realms, in other dimensions, and come back. That's no joke. And so she said, you literally are doing this, and talked about the earth and fixing the earth and the ley lines. And literally then I have this dream, and some could say, well, she influenced my dream, but I've already had this exact same scenario, which is why I brought up what I was going through about 7 years ago, which she didn't know about because I never talked about it. So literally somehow I affected her, if you don't believe any of this, without me telling her. And then she affected me for my dream, which all of them were the same exact reoccurring thing, which is the exact same thing that is told in every Bible. So even if you want to look at it in any way that I was just influenced, I was influenced by all the religions on this earth because they all have a version of this story, which was locked away until the time in the future, way in the future, in the end days, for people to decipher, which I can now decipher, by the way. I can read every single scroll and tell you what it means. And there's only a couple people on the planet I've ever met that can do that. And I actually have that ability. And I've hid that for a year and a half from the world. Hid the fact that I can read the scrolls because I thought I was crazy and I was waiting for other people to be knowing what I know. And yet they don't. So I'm writing about it in my book. And I'm going to be teaching it as we go. And it's not as crazy as everybody thinks, but it is. When I tell it, it sounds stupid and it sounds crazy and it can't be true. And then it because it's actually very simple, which is weird. But then again, everything really is. When you actually are awake and you see everything in this world and this earth, the way it actually works, it actually becomes very simple. And you go and you laugh and go, I can't believe I didn't see this and thought it was something crazy big. And it's actually very simple, but it is actually crazy big. But when you realize it isn't crazy. It's like when you're looking for your keys and you find them, you don't look for your keys anymore. People always go, you ever notice they're in the last place you ever look? Well, yeah, because who keeps looking for shit after they find it? Nobody. So whenever you find something, it's the last place you look because you're not going to look anymore for it. It's the same thing with the universe. When you unlock the universe, you don't keep trying to unlock the universe. You look for what you missed. So that portion that you unlock becomes very simple because you've unlocked it, but for other people, it's completely foreign. Okay. So Ra is talking about that, literally using the human psyche to show people in a physical way. And this is literally the physical manifestation around the earth of the spirituality of the earth and the people on it, which is you as well. You are literally, this is what Jesus and Muhammad and these other people, Moses in all the Eastern, Western, Judeo-Christian realities, Thor, what Odin was saying, these same people around the earth. Marduk was another version of this. When you go around the earth to these other people, Vishnu was telling the same story, and that literally it's trying to get your attention. The gods of Thoth, the entire emerald tablets of Thoth. I can actually tell you what all those mean. Every single chapter is actually the same story, but there's many layers to it. Same thing with the Book of the Dead. I can tell you what that means. That's the same thing, different gates. And those gates are different chakra points of the human body, but also of the spiritual realm as well. And that's the ascension and going to the immortal realm. It's the same story. I could explain all of that to everybody. And because I actually get it, where other people will say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, okay, so you explain it to me. Well, I can't. You can't know it because it's locked up in time for. No, but I do. I have a version. And if you think I'm wrong, prove it, right? I'm not trying to say I made something up because I didn't. I read a scroll, which is gone. I read a scroll and translated a scroll that was 17 chapters long. And I deciphered 17 chapters of code work. And then when I did it, it disappeared off of the 17 sheets of paper in front of me and off of my screen on my computer. And I was not asleep because I had gone to sleep. Because of the day before, I started looking at it and went, I've been drinking too much alcohol. I can't figure this out. I need to go to bed and come back tomorrow. And tomorrow I wasn't drinking. And I sat down and started doing it. And I wrote all this stuff out and then read it. And then after I read it, it was literally the story from the Bible that read this. And then it disappeared off the paperwork that I wrote it on and was locked up in my head. The difference is that being locked up in my head gave me the ability to actually figure out and tell people what they say. Every scroll I've picked up since. Even the ones I had no idea what they meant before. Okay. So, right? I know Denise is like, wow, yeah, right? So, literally, most people, Penny, you're absolutely right. Penny says, Leonard, I've always thought that I was doing the same thing. She's referring to about when I sleep. She says, I have the strongest feeling that I am busy doing other stuff. You are. Almost everyone does that. You just aren't aware of it. And when you unlock and ascend, you unlock this in yourself. you start to realize that. It's part of the ascension process. You start to realize that when your body goes to sleep, your soul doesn't need any sleep. So it goes off to do other things. You're a guide to some people. That's why Merlin has a saying, when Merlin showed up in Arthur's dreams, and he said to Merlin, Merlin, is this a dream? And Merlin said to Arthur, I am a dream to some and a nightmare to others. And then he disappeared. Because that's the truth of that work. Is for some you are a dream and to others you are a nightmare. It just depends on what their polarization is. So you guys all are unaware of this, but you're far more than this physical body. And when the physical body has to sleep and rest, you go to sleep. And when you go into the subconscious, that is when you're allowing your subconscious mind, which its job is to control your body and to keep it breathing and all your blood circulating and the heart pumping and your food and everything digesting and your healing of your body does that. You leave. You're attached to it by that tether, by that string, but you leave. Your spirit takes off and does other ththings. Sometimes you go and talk to your higher self. Sometimes you go and talk to your guides. Sometimes you're in schools learning. Sometimes you're in another realm fighting in another war. Sometimes you go into one of the other bodies that you occupy either in this reality or another one, and you wake up there and spend 8 hours there and go back to sleep there and leave and come back to your body here. You just get veiled everywhere you go, so you don't remember it. As you ascend, that veil becomes thinner, and you start to realize that you start bringing some of that with you, right? So you start bringing some of that with you. So Rick says, I have no idea, but I wake up and not refreshed. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you wake up and you're tired, but you don't feel physically tired, but you feel mentally tired. That's because you were off running around and you came back at the last second. So you didn't get any real rest. And that sometimes translates, Rick, into when you wake up and you go, fuck, I feel like I was running a marathon last night. Sometimes your body feels beat up too. That's usually when you've had whatever it was you were doing was pretty strenuous. So you weren't just talking to your guides and hanging out. You went somewhere in that other realm. I talked about that for years. And you ever know that place that you go to where you're fighting a war on magic and there's all these people around that you know, but there's not a lot of you. And sometimes you run into them in here and you go, I know you from a different place, but I don't know where. That's a real place. So sometimes you go and stand on the wall and fight off the hordes of evil by yourself. And that was what they were showing you with Gandalf when he held off Belrog and said, you shall not pass. That is literally what we do in a different realm. And it's literally one of us at a time. And that's where the Vikings came up with the berserkers in the Viking folklore. And that's a berserker. You stand by yourself and you hold off an entire army of legions of darkness. Watch that movie, by the way. That was the same thing where Gabriel comes down here. I think it's Gabriel comes down and he's standing alone with just a few humans fighting the entire legion. That's the movie. You should look it up. Of angels that have now turned dark because God has decided to end the human race. But Gabriel doesn't believe that it should happen. And he comes down here and you have Joseph and Mary and a little baby who is the savior that's going to be born of the human race. So it's literally the same concept happening in a modern day. And one person stands against the army of darkness. And again, there was a movie made by Sam Raimi called The Army of Darkness, which was the same concept put into a horror film comedy, which is the same thing of one person standing against a whole army of darkness and descending into this evil place and having abilities in his brain that made him smarter than everybody else with his boomstick, which was a shotgun. And it was a funny comedy, but the storyline is the exact same as one I just told you. It's the same story that Sam Raimi wrote in a like a zombie fashion movie called Army of Darkness, which is a cult classic that he did after he wrote Evil Dead Part 1 and 2, which you should watch those as well. He invented the Steadicam in the movie Evil Dead, which is now universal. Everyone on this earth uses the Steadicam for anyone who has a holster on their body of a camera filming anything. That Steadicam was invented and it was just a skateboard with wood on it originally and guys were pushing the thing. And then eventually they started putting it on the body and created this dip gyro, which would keep it steady whether you were running or not. And then now they use that for robots. So what the technology that Sam Raimi invented for the Steadicam is now translated into AI, and all cameras everywhere, including cameras that they hook onto cars, on helmets, everything that you're running and the camera stays steady is because of the technology that Sam Raimi invented for this horror movie called Evil Dead. Stupid little things that I know. Sam Raimi fan. A lot of stupid little things that I know. Okay, so that is let's get away from that and get back on point. So the point here is that the mission might be taking a turn, and I've been reluctant always to charge money, and people around me have been saying it's time, and then literally Dimitru shows up and says, dude, you should be charging. How much do you charge? You should be getting compensation for your energy. You're absolutely right. I published this book and it's going to be doing the same thing. So I now believe that I do need to start reaching out and start going into this and start charging people money to do this and go forward so that I can make a living for myself, so that I can continue doing what I'm doing, because I do have to soon probably put my mother into a home. And then that means I'm going to have an income to take care of myself. So that is something that I'm working on behind the scenes currently. And that's funny that Dimitri shows up just in time to tell me that. And I don't know where he went. So I don't know if he went to one of the chats that I can't see now. And Cassie's also quiet. So maybe the two of them are talking, which is very possible. I'm all right with that. So yeah, great movie, Penny. I agree. Okay, so let's get back into Raw, and I'm going to get off here soon. I went way longer than I wanted to go, not playing Raw this week. I wanted to finish the session, but it doesn't look like we're going to, so I'm going to be leaving here probably in about 20 minutes. So let's get in what we can here. We only have 4 minutes left of this session.
20.34 Questioner. Well, then, did Orion entities do this themselves? Did they land in physical, or did they do it from mental planes? Or did they use one of the incarnate entities to construct these by thought? Ra, I am Ra. Nearly all of these structures and formations were...
Okay, sorry, Cassie. I'm getting ready to leave too. I'm just going to go a little bit longer here, and I got to get off here by 6 at the latest. So I'm trying to push through some of this here because there's only 3 minutes left of the 3 minutes, 50 seconds left of the session.
Were constructed at a distance by thought. A very few were created in later times in imitation of original constructs by entities upon your Earth plane/density. 20.35 Questioner. What density Orion entity did the creation of these heads?
See, now I got to stop there. I have to stop here, not because of what Raw said, but because of what Peter just said. Okay, so we'll be finishing Raw next week. I'm going to put this up on the screen and read this to you. Peter says, because I was talking about my dreams, Peter said, I just had a dream the other night. We were all sitting in the circle of life. And I was in the middle. I was in the middle, given a knowledge of the Omega, and I just thought that I would let that be known. So literally, if you think about the Bible, literally, when Moses went up the mountain to talk to the burning bush, God said, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. So 3, 6, and 9, right? 9 is 9 and 0. At the same time, that is the Alpha and the Omega. The Omega is 0 point. That's why it has the symbol of the O, the Omega. And so literally Peter is saying that he had a dream and that we were all sitting in a circle, sitting in the circle of life. And he was in the middle, which would be where the Omega, the 0 point is. And he was given the knowledge of Omega. Right? He was given the knowledge of the Omega. All right. So it's this literally, he had a dream the other night that was manifesting the same way that my dream was manifesting in that you're asking the wrong question. You don't have to stop them. You just have to become the solution. And the 0 point is the balance and is everything. It's the all, it's the infinity. And so literally Peter had the same dream that manifests to him in a different way that was unique to his understanding. And I had the exact same dream this morning or last night, however you want to look at it, and I had the exact same knowledge given to me that was given to Peter in his dream. So as soon as I read that, I was like, okay, I'm done talking about. We'll be finishing Raw next week and moving on next week, because I wanted to get that in, that literally Peter had the same type of dream that I had, and it manifests to him in a different format. But it was the exact, and he realized it was the exact same concept. My concept was, in my dream, was the same. It was, you're asking the wrong question. I was asking the question in the 9 energy, in the mundane, in the 3D, in the illusion of, I have to find this physical person. And then I was told by my ancestors, that's the wrong focus. Your focus should be what? Inward or outward. And instead of trying to go and stop the person from doing this, you have to be thinking infinity and just fixing it and writing it. And that was the contemplation I had for years of my life, that about 7 years ago I got the answer to. And then when I was going to go write my book, I was like, why am I doing this? Because it's not for you, it's for them. That's the same concept told in a different story. So literally, over and over in my life, every time I've questioned what I was doing and why I was doing it, the answer has always been the same. And Peter, who I know has been questioning the same thing in this last 2 weeks, because we all have, and he's voiced that, or he's been having issues as well, and wondering if he's going to walk away from everything and what he's going to do. He has the dream, just like I did, and I was told last week that I needed by a psychic, by what's her name, O'Rourke. Is her name Bridget? I can't remember her name. But she's related to me because my mother's side of the family is O'Rourke's, and she looks like the family. I just haven't talked to her to find out where we're related. We're a few generations apart, but we're related. And I literally was on her show last week, and she said to me, you need to drink more water and you need to change what you've been eating and make sure you get back to eating good stuff, because you've gotten off of eating really good stuff lately, and you've gotten kind of lazy, and I have with my cooking, but she didn't know that. And she says they're telling me that you need to clean house because there's changes that are coming. And I was already told in 2023 money was going to come. Well, how is that going to come if I'm not doing something to earn it? And I've been reluctant to do that. And so all of the things in my life in the last months leading up to now have been telling me the same thing. Get prepared, start cleaning house. And she was saying for you personally. And so she wasn't saying anything like you're going to be moving necessarily, but that you need to make sure that you're drinking enough water. And then, of course, literally while I'm doing, Cassie was there, and Denise was there, and I think Penny was there yesterday. The first thing that Jamie Watson Wolf gets after she says, when the sky cracks open, you will see, oh, wait, they're telling me to drink more water. I have to go and get water. I didn't say it to her. That's funny, because yesterday I was told by a psychic that I need to drink water because of what I'm going through. And I knew that I didn't have enough water in my system, that I wasn't drinking enough water, and it was getting hotter. And I just assumed that it was because of that. It wasn't. It's the energy that I'm transmuting, and it's getting hotter outside. So the ambient temperature has me burning more water. But I teach people all the time, like the movie Dune, which I just watched, or the new movie, which ends at the end of the first book. So if you've ever watched the movie, the one with Jason Momoa, and went, what? How could they end it there? That's just the end of the first book. There's actually there's actually 8 books, but 4 in the main story, and then they had extended after that. I don't know if what's his name wrote that or not, but they did it extended after that. But the books, the Dune saga, you should read them. Frank Herbert wrote those, and they did that. Jason Momoa was just like the book, so it wasn't very far off. If you ever read that book and saw that version of it, you're going to go, what? Yes, there was only a few things they changed, and they were small, minute things. Okay, so all of these things I teach people, water is your life. And that's why I brought up Dune, because that was the motto of the Fremen on Dune, water is your life. And there was a song by Iron Maiden that they talked about that, water is your life, and without it you will die, on the desert planet of called Dune. That's literally a song that Iron Maiden wrote after reading that book. And it's literally talks about Dune and Dune Messiah. And the entire storyline of that. I forgot to bring that up. I don't think I've told anybody that, but you can find that from Iron Maiden. They wrote the song. I'm pretty sure it was Iron Maiden that wrote the song called Dune Messiah. And it's about Frank Herbert's book. So I know, Cassie, you got to go because you're driving, right? You're about ready to leave to go driving. So I love you too, sister. Have a great time and enjoy yourself over there. And if certain person's energy is in any way interruptive, let me know if you need a little bit of a boost, but I'm sure you got this, right? So you guys will be good. So drive safe, and I'll see you on the other side. So meaning not after we die, meaning I'll see you after you get there, and if we ever commune between now and in the future, which we will, because we usually do, even when you're there. When you have a moment, you usually drop me a line and tell me how things are going. So drive safe and have a good trip. So literally, so then Peter brings up this dream, and his dream is literally telling him the same thing, and that he was at 0 point. That's why he was at the center of the circle, and that he was given the knowledge of Omega, which is the 0 point. And he didn't get into, a great song, right? I agree, Penny, that is a great song. She saw that when I said that, she said great song. It is a great song. If you guys are old Iron Maiden fans, that came out a long time ago. But that was when Frank Herbert. I don't know when the books came out, but I read them when I was 17 years old or 16 years old when I started reading the Dune books. I was in high school. I was a sophomore in high school. That's how far back that goes, right? So we're talking about the 80s, mid 80s, because I would have been 20 in 87. So this was in 85, 84, 85, somewhere around there, right? Maybe somewhere right around there. So I don't know when Frank Herbert wrote the books, but that was when I read them. But I read Tolkien just a year or two before that, and I guess Tolkien had written those books for Lord of the Rings, like in the 40s, 45 to 49 or something when he published those. But then I was reading a lot of those books from the English writers that were all in the 40s in England. Philip K. Dick and a lot of those guys that were writing all this famous sci-fi. That 90% of all science fiction movies made in America in the last 35 years were from these guys. Literally, I just watched. What was it called? It was Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. Do Android's Dream of Electric Sheep was the book by Philip K. Dick, and the movie was Blade Runner. I just watched Blade Runner 2049 for the first time. I hadn't seen it. I just watched that last weekend, and then watched Dune right after that. So by two of my most famous writers that I loved all their books. And I read Do Android's Dream of Electric Sheep and saw the movie Blade Runner back in the 80s, and they made 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they made or 10 years ago now, made 2049, which was an extension of that. But that was never a book that I know that Philip K. Dick wrote, but they did extend it. It was kind of cool the way they did it. And I liked that they did that, because they did that with Tron too, where they did Tron, the second movie, which was really good. They added to it, and Tron came out in 1982, and the second movie that Jeff Bridges did was in like 2010 or something, right? So that was cool stuff. But the morals of these stories are the same. They're still teaching you the same stuff, and that's the same. These guys that were writing these books were very awake, and they had to have been, and if they weren't, their messages were channeled to them in their books, because when you look at the stories, and I don't try to apply, I'm a scientist, so when people say, oh, you're just trying to apply those things to make them sound that way, I'm not. I refuse to say that. So when I say things about these religions and tell you like about the Christos and Christ, I've researched that. I haven't just turned on that video for the first time and said, this is the way it is. I've been researching religions my entire life. I didn't talk about the Ragnarok and the cracking of the sky until my father came through in a psychic the other day and said, when the sky is cracked open, you will see. And that's literally the illumination of the third eye. And that's literally only told that way by Thor letting his hammer fly and cracking the dark sky, cracking the blackened sky with Mjolnir, lightning, the illumination rod or hammer that he cracks open the sky so that people can see. And the reference came through by my father about that. And then everything he said after that was the messages that were esoteric for me to understand because of the reference. And he had came through before and talked about it there, and then when he then was talking about the mission, mentioned the word mission, and then said we can't talk about it here. Well, he was already talking about it. It's just nobody else knew that but me. Because it was very esoteric, and you had to know the reference of the first words out of her mouth, and then she quit to go and get water because she needed water. And they were she even said when she took a drink, hold on, I got to take a drink of water. They told me to. Then she said, when the sky cracks open, you will see. Then she said, I got to get up and get more water. She was driven to do that. That was them showing me, again, I'm not transmuting enough water for the energy that I have to transmute. So I've upped my water. And right now I'm probably, not enough water in my system. I haven't drank enough today. So I'll be dousing myself for the next 3 hours while I'm sitting silent, not speaking, letting my voice heal. So the message is coming through and it's clear. And they keep telling us, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And we bitch about it behind the scenes and don't tell you guys about that because they're not down here, and they laugh. And even Jamie Watson-Wolf said that one day when she was laughing and saying, yeah, they're laughing because they're saying only you guys were crazy enough to go down there to do what you're doing, not us. And so they admit, they know, and even though we give them a hard time, I give them a hard time, but the shift is happening in a way that that we've been wanting but not having the clarity to be able to see the fruits of our labors. And so it's coming through in different ways that are manifesting for those of us here to see. Do you see, right? Right. You're careful with raw Vegas. Are you talking about the Vegas nerves? Is that what you're saying there? I'm not sure if that was the reference you meant, Rick, but that's funny that you say that. Careful with raw Vegas. The 80s were actually really, they were really, the music of the 80s, 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s rock worldwide was this movement of spirituality that everybody, because of the psychedelic drugs they were doing, they were literally ascending in a way that we're doing now without the psychedelic drugs. And then we're doing that too. We're doing ayahuasca and DMT and high THC. And that's literally making us ascend even higher than they were back then, opening the doors like the band The Doors. So I agree with you. The music that came out from the 60s through the 80s was very, very awake. And then they tried to put everybody to sleep during the 90s because they saw what was happening with Gen Xers in the 80s, coming, the ones that were born in the 60s. And they were afraid of the Gen Xers. And then when these Gen Y and Gen Z were coming through so awake, they had to put everybody to sleep. So they tried. So the music had to take a different tone and turn. And it did. The same people are still out there doing it that were doing it before. So they just changed their lyrics to hide what they were doing. And then this screeching death metal came in that they don't understand anyways. It's too fast for them, and that's too guttural. So when you hear those guys singing, everyone thinks they're satanic again, like they did in the 60s. They thought they were all satanic, and they're actually preaching the same thing. There's bands out there that I have been following and show people the different songs that they're literally singing about self-empowerment and spiritual awakening. But it sounds like they're saying evil shit because 90% of the population doesn't even understand what the words coming out of their mouth, because they're using that voice, which is the weirding way from Dune. For those of you who have actually watched Dune, the weirding voice that they use doesn't come across in that movie as well as it does when you read the book or the first movie of Dune that was made in the 80s. That the voice they used, the weirding voice they used there, was a little more deep and guttural and had an echo that echoed in your mind, a methodical echo. And this one is sped up a little bit and it's not as aggressive. And I like that they showed the part where Paul tries to, when they're in the thopter that look like dragonflies. They actually were described the same way in the book, by the way, where they literally were like ornithopters that moved like dragonflies and flew. They look like our dragonflies that we have on Earth, which is where they got them from, because you have to remember they're a water world. So the Atreides were on the planet of Atreides was a water world, and so they manufactured their planes, their ships from dragonflies that they had on their planet. You had to have read the books to know that. They didn't tell you that in the movie, but that's why they look like dragonflies and operate like dragonflies, because that's what because you always mimic what you see. That's why our airplanes look like birds soaring here on Earth. We mimic the birds, and that's what we make our planes with the lift of the bird wings. Well, they had dragonflies that were larger than the ones we have here, and so they made their planes work just like dragonflies because they mimic the birds of their planet. That's told in the book. but it's not told in the movie. They never translate everything 100%. Books are always better than the movies. But the movies are great visually, but they're never up to what you visualize from what the author tells you. That's why I always tell somebody, read the book, man. If you think that movie was good, read the book. Always. I have never seen a movie that, unless the movie was written first and then, the screenplay, and then they wrote a book about it. Then it's just like the movie. But if you've ever read saw a movie that was made a book first, don't read the book first and then go see the movie, because you will be disappointed always. But if you do, you have to be in that mindset of it's never going to be as good. That movie Dune, when Frank Herbert wrote the books, and even in the 80s when I was reading them, they actually said about those books that these are the books that they will never, ever be able to make into movies because of the technology and the way things worked in the books. Okay. So you have to realize that is how advanced when he wrote them. That's why I think he wrote them in the 40s. It was so advanced, the technology and the things that he talked about, that they literally, the world said they'll never be able to film this because we'll never have the technology to do this. We do have the technology now to do what he wrote in the books, but they still haven't done 100% of it. I'll tell you this from watching the movies. Even that one that just came out 2 years ago in 2021 from Jason Momoa, that still is not 100% the technology from the books. But to their defense, the first book is pretty simple in basic, so they did a good job. They did a 98% rendering from the movie, but the technology, like the shields in this, are very invisible, and in the movie in the 80s they were very square and hard to see through, and that they were kind of like that. But they had to be like that in our technology for you to see them. Whereas in the movie, in this one, you don't even see the shields at all. You only see the colors of the striking or the red as somebody's penetrating slowly through the shield. So the shield, it becomes inconsequential in this movie in a way that I didn't like. They should have given it more of a sheen appearance. To let you see the shield there at all times, even though they're trying to do it realistically, because realistically in the book, you didn't get to see the shield. Okay, so I get that. So for people that are true Puritans to the book, that was a great job, because the way that you saw it in this movie with Jason Momoa is exactly the way the visual was in the book, but the book gave you a different image of what was happening physically, so that it painted the image in your head more than the visual does in the movie, to give you the realization that there is a shield here that cannot be penetrated by anything except for something that moves very, very slow. And that's why you see that one of the guys gets shot in his shield from behind, and it goes through, and I think that they were trying to say that was Duncan, Idaho, but I don't believe. No, that was no, it was Duncan, Idaho, not Gurney Halleck. So it was Duncan, Idaho, that got shot there, because I was trying to figure it out during the movie. I was thinking, wait a minute, did they just do this wrong? Because at the end of the first book, you don't know what happens. You don't actually see either one of them die, by the way. So, but you see, Gurney Halleck goes missing. He's out on the tarmac and charges at the Harkonnens with his men. In the movie, or in the book, he had a dog. He had a pug in his hands. He picked up the pug because the emperor, the Harkonnens, had a pug as a pet, and he grabbed the pug because the pug was running around the palace, and he had the pug in his hand. In the old movie in the 80s, he had that pug in his arm, in his left arm, when he charged in a battle. In this movie, they just left the dog out completely. That actually played a part, and later on it plays a part too, but obviously they've edited that part out for this version, unless it comes back somehow. But he was in battle. He had the pug tucked into his still suit, and they charged out onto the tarmac, and he led the assault against the Harkonnens, and you don't see him again, and he disappears. But he's not dead; he'll reappear. I know that's I'm telling for those of you who haven't read the books. If you have read the books, if that only if that first movie is the only one that you saw, there's 2 more movies coming. There's 2 more movies coming because that's book 1. And then that was a spoiler alert. I just gave you a little bit of insight into Duncan, Idaho, that he's not dead. He's going to reappear. So I apologize for some people that I'm going to ruin the movie when it happens, but you should have read the books. And if watching that first movie didn't spawn you to go and buy Frank Herbert's Dune sagas and read those books, you're crazy, because I think there's 4 books. I'm trying to remember how many there are. I know there's at least 3, but I think there's 4. So if they do one, there'll be 3 movies at least, unless they combine any of the books. They did that with the first movie. If you go and watch the first movie, that was back in the 80s, they tried to combine all 4 books into one movie, which was about 3.5 hours long or 4 hours long, uncut. And they did an okay job, but there was stuff they obviously had to cut out that they couldn't have in scenes. I saw them cut out of this one too. There was a scene where Gurney Halleck sings a song for Paul Atreides just before they do the first fight, when he tells them that moods are a thing for cattle and love play and arm yourself. He sang a song first and then attacked him. In this, they didn't show that, but in the first one, in the long version, which was well over 4 hours, they did show that. And in the series, the miniseries that they filmed, it was in it. So there's different tellings, and people for time constraints pull scenes out that are they're inconsequential. But the song was consequential. Anyways, so I'm going to stop here because now I'm just going over and giving a review of that movie. But the stories are the same, and it's the same storyline of the Christos, of the Christ. And these books were written, 60, 70, 80 years ago, some of them. And they were telling the same story again and again and again. It's the same with everything, and that's hard for some people to get. But I see that not because I'm trying to apply it. I see these things happen, and literally Peter just went through the same metaphoric dream that I went through that was tailored to his knowledge. And I didn't ask him what was told, but I have an idea of what that knowledge was that he was told, because I literally had the same waking dream. And that's why I brought up Paul Atreides, because he was having the same waking dreams in the Dune saga. And that actually was why I brought that up and how that fits in. And Raw literally, that's why I'm leaving it here so we can pick it up next week. Raw is saying that they literally did the same thing with the entire human existence, looked into the mind's eye of the human psyche, of the tree of life at the 0 point, and got the images that would most tantalize the human psyche of questioning and hunting for and being drawn to, in a physical way, in a spiritual way, and in every way on this earth. And those of us, and this is why Peter brought that up, I'm sure, those of us, that is what we're here to do. And it's what's also happening to us at the same time. All of that is esoteric, and it all leads back. All roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to 0 point, the tree of life. That's why I brought up where the tree of life, you can walk outside and go and touch the tree at the base of the tree. And that is literally 0 point for the tree. And that is where your heart chakra is. That is where the tree's heart chakra is. And that's why when people would go to chop trees down, they're spiritually minded, especially the Celts, and they would go and knock on a tree up high and knock it all the way down to the ground. And you would never chop the tree down and pull the roots out. You would chop the tree and you would leave the root system there, because that's the heart of the tree. And the tree can then grow back from that. It's only when you go and pull a stump out of the ground that you kill the tree completely. And so that's why you would see when they would cut trees down in the forest, they would never remove the trees completely. They would just cut them down to and leave about a foot or 2 above the earth and leave that tree there, because the tree will sprout a new tree from that and grow up from that and become another tree again in another 500 to 1,000 years or 150 years. But if you go below the ground and you uproot the tree will die and never grow again. That's why lumberjacks cut the trees and leave the stumps there. And people are like, why do they always leave the stump? Well, because they can't use it. No, that's not why. Originally, the reason why was if you leave that tree there, you're leaving the heart of the tree and the soul. You drive the soul down into the tree by knocking on the wood. That's where knock on wood comes from, by the way. You knock on the wood and knock down because you tell the tree we're going to use you, so we're going to cut you down for firewood or to build a house or whatever, and we need this wood. And so you don't harm the tree by letting the tree know, and you knock on the tree and drive its soul in, and the tree hides in the earth, and you cut off everything that's above, but you leave the tree alive, and the tree that is life, the life-giving portion of the tree at 0 point, then grows again and renews and comes back as a new tree. And you leave that part of the forest alone, and you go to another part, and then you let the trees grow back up, and that's called forestation, and it's a sustainable force. That's literally how things were done in the old days, in the old ways on this earth, from everywhere until recent times when we cut the trees down and pulled the roots out to get them out of the fucking way so we could pave over it with stone and asphalt and put a parking shop on there and a fast food restaurant. Do you see? So we're destroying all of nature to make room for ourselves and not giving anything back. And that's why we're wanting to return people to the old ways. And that it means in many different ways. It doesn't mean we have to give up all technology and put on animal skins and live in tents, although that would be a really good start. But that doesn't mean we have to do all of that and get rid of this technology. We have to use it wisely. And that was a message that somebody was just telling me. Was that Jamie talking about AI? Saying that about AI being used properly, that AI doesn't have to take over, that AI can be used properly. Yes, because she was talking about them seeing things from the other side and how there was a shift, and that they were having a problem with the shift because they can't see the future. And I was referring to that in the chat and answering that things are hard for them to see on the other side. And so they were saying that AI used properly is a good thing, but then there's the split of AI taking over and AI not. So our technology can continue to go the way it's going if we're not using it as weapons and we're not letting it weaponize and manifest into the matrix like the movies. All right, guys, I love you guys. I got to go. It's after 6. I got to get dinner ready. Got to eat dinner. Have a great weekend. Here I go 3 hours again. I was not planning that, but I did. So a lot of people don't listen to my show because it's too fucking long. But again, all of the good shit happens in the last couple hours of my show. All right, guys, have a great night. I love you guys. I'll see you guys next week.